presented by Soundlibra.com. Explore more titles via the link in the description or at Soundlibra.com. Welcome to the Calm Parenting Blueprint. Let's begin transforming your parenting experience.
Parenting is rewarding, but it's also incredibly challenging, right? Real quick before we start, just a reminder that while we're discussing emotional well-being, this isn't medical or mental health advice, so please consult a professional for specific concerns.
That's an important note. Many of us feel overwhelmed, drained, and just trying to get through each day. That's exactly why we created the Calm Parenting Blueprint. We see an epidemic of parental burnout, leaving parents feeling disconnected and questioning their abilities. This blueprint is designed to help you thrive, not just survive, in your parenting journey.
So, when we say calm parenting, what does that truly mean? Is it simply about not yelling?
Great question. It's so much more than just suppressing anger. Calm parenting is about approaching your role with inner peace and connection, even during chaos. It's responding with intention, not reacting from stress. It's about creating a safe, understood, and connected environment for both you and your children.
It sounds like building a foundation of well-being for the whole family, especially for parents.
Precisely. Our promise is to help you burnout-proof your parenting. We aim to equip you with the tools and mindset to nurture great kids while experiencing deep ease and connection in your family life. Think of it as creating a sustainable, fulfilling parenting practice that doesn't leave you depleted.
That sounds amazing. What are the foundational pillars of this blueprint?
We'll start by understanding the roots of parental overwhelm. Many parents feel immense pressure, a sense of not enough. We'll explore where this comes from and how to shift that perspective towards a more resilient, peaceful approach to family life.
Understanding the why behind the overwhelm is a vital first step. It's easy to just feel stressed without knowing why or what to do.
Absolutely. And once we understand the overwhelm, we can build our capacity to handle parenting's ups and downs. This leads us to our first practical pillar, building your patience reservoir.
Patience. Every parent needs more of it. How do we build up our patience reserves when they seem to deplete so quickly?
It really does feel that way. Imagine your patience as a well. Normally, it might be full, but constantly drawing from it without refilling depletes it. Parental burnout is often a symptom of an empty patience well. We face constant demands and unexpected situations, and without a strategy to refill, we feel drained.
So, it's not that we're inherently impatient, but rather our resources are overdrawn?
Exactly. The good news is you absolutely can build, or rather, replenish and enlarge that reservoir. It's not about magically becoming a saint. It's about implementing intentional practices that support your emotional capacity. We'll explore practical techniques to refill your patience well, giving you more to draw from when your child tests your limits.
That's comforting. It's not a fixed rate.
Not all. As we build that well of patience, the next crucial step is intentionally fostering strong bonds with your children. This brings us to the art of connected co-parenting. While we often think of two parents raising children, in calm-parenting, we broaden that. It's about the connection between you and each child, and with your partner, if you have one, as a parenting team.
So, strengthening those vital relationships within the family unit is key. How does connection play into that?
Connection is the bedrock. When children feel deeply connected to their parents, they're more likely to cooperate, feel secure, and thrive. Connected co-parenting means being present, truly seeing and hearing your child, and responding to their needs in a way that builds trust. It's about attunement, not perfection.
Attuned. I like that. So, it's about doing things with our kids, fostering that feeling of being seen.
Precisely. And when we have that strong connection, it naturally leads into how we guide behavior, which brings us to playful discipline, connection before correction.
Playful discipline. That sounds different from traditional punitive methods.
It is. Discipline is often seen as punishment or control, but from a calm parenting perspective, it's about teaching. The most effective teaching happens when a child feels safe and connected. Prioritizing connection before correction communicates, I love you, and I'm here to help you learn, rather than, you misbehaved, now you're in trouble.
So we address behavior with warmth and understanding rather than just focusing on the transgression.
Exactly. It's about understanding the root cause. Is your child tired? Hungry? Feeling unseen? Addressing the underlying reason with empathy and guiding them through correction is more effective and builds their self-regulation skills. A playful approach can often de-escalate tension and make learning smoother.
That makes sense. It shifts the focus from being bad to learning to do better.
And to embed these principles daily, we'll explore daily connection rituals. These are small, intentional moments that anchor your family and reinforce those strong bonds, acting as the glue.
Daily connection rituals. Can you give us an example?
Certainly, it could be a special handshake, a few minutes of reading together before bed, or a family meal where everyone shares one good thing. These aren't grand gestures. They're small, consistent practices communicating love, presence, and security, creating predictable moments of connection.
Like creating little anchors in the day to keep everyone grounded and connected.
A perfect analogy. And as families grow, sibling relationships can become challenging. So, we'll delve into taming the sibling storm with calm rivalry management.
Oh, sibling rivalry. That can be exhausting. How do we manage it calmly?
It's a common hurdle. We'll look at fostering fairness and individuality while teaching children healthy conflict resolution with each other. It's about guiding them to see siblings not as rivals, but as playmates and allies, even when they disagree. We'll explore strategies to reduce competition and increase cooperation.
So, moving from mine and he hit me towards more positive interactions.
Exactly. All these practices require energy, and that energy comes from our own well-being. This is why we dedicate an important section to self-care, the non-negotiable parenting essential.
Self care. That's usually the first thing to go when life gets busy, isn't it?
It is, and that's precisely why it must be non-negotiable. Like the airplane safety instruction to put on your own oxygen mask first, parents need to prioritize their well-being. You can't pour from an empty cup. Self-care isn't selfish. It's essential for sustainable, calm parenting. We'll explore how to weave it into your busy life, even in small ways.
It's easy to feel guilty taking time for ourselves, but you're saying it's critical for being a better parent.
Absolutely critical. Hand in hand with self-care goes realistic expectations. We'll discuss setting yourselves up for success by understanding that perfection is impossible, and that's okay. We'll look at meeting ourselves and our children where we are and adjusting expectations.
That sounds like a recipe for reducing stress and disappointment. Realistic expectations can free up so much mental energy.
They truly do. And when conflicts inevitably arise, we'll focus on healing from conflict, the repair process. Disagreements and mistakes are opportunities for growth. The real magic is in how we repair those ruptures in connection.
So, it's not just about avoiding conflict, but learning to come back together after it.
Precisely. This leads us to cultivating a harmonious family emotional culture. What's the overall feeling in your home? Is it anxiety or safety, warmth, and encouragement? We'll explore how to intentionally nurture a positive emotional climate.
That's a significant point. The home's emotional atmosphere greatly impacts everyone.
It truly does. After this groundwork, we'll take a deeper dive into specific pillars. We'll have episodes dedicated to mastering the patient's toolkit, advanced co-parenting communication, creative playful discipline scenarios, and navigating intense sibling rivalry.
So, we get the foundational principles first, then more advanced strategies.
Exactly. We'll also have deep dives into crafting your personalized self-care blueprint, reframing expectations for different ages and stages, and the art of emotional regulation within families. Learning to regulate our own emotions helps us guide our children to do the same.
It sounds like a comprehensive approach to not just surviving, but truly enjoying and excelling in parenting.
That's the goal. In our final episode, we'll integrate everything with a calm parenting blueprint, integration, and long-term vision. We'll see how all these pieces create a sustainable, joyful, and deeply connected family life.
It's exciting to envision the transformation. This series truly offers a prescription for a calmer, more connected family life.
That's our hope. We're moving away from the idea of perfect parenting towards purposeful, connected, and calm parenting. It's about building a family where everyone feels seen, heard, and loved, and where parents feel empowered and resilient.
So, to recap, we're on a journey to combat parental burnout and foster great kids by moving beyond just not yelling to intentional, connection focused parenting. We'll explore building patience, strengthening family connections, guiding behavior playfully, creating daily anchors, managing sibling dynamics, prioritizing self care, setting realistic expectations, repairing conflicts, and nurturing a positive family emotional culture.
That's a fantastic summary, Lisa. And this is just the beginning, laying the foundation for a more peaceful and fulfilling parenting experience. Next episode, building your patience reservoir. Welcome back. Last time, we explored the core idea of calm parenting. Now, let's build your patience reservoir.
Building your patience reservoir. I love that metaphor, Alex. It feels so accurate because sometimes our patience tank seems perpetually on empty, doesn't it? Especially with little ones demanding our attention or testing boundaries.
Precisely, Lisa. That feeling of depletion, of frayed patience, is a major contributor to parental burnout. Without a solid reservoir of patience, it's like building a house on sand. It's bound to crumble under pressure. So let's dive in. What is patience in parenting, and why is it so challenging to maintain?
That's a perfect starting point. For me, patience isn't just about withholding a sharp word or biting back frustration in the heat of the moment. It's a deeper ability to stay calm, understanding, and even empathetic when faced with difficult behavior or challenging situations. It's about choosing to respond, not just react.
That's an excellent distinction. Lisa, responding versus reacting. And it is incredibly difficult. Why? A lot of it stems from our biology. When we perceive a threat, and a child's tantrum or defiance can certainly feel like one, our body's natural fight or flight response kicks in. Our heart rate quickens, our muscles tense, and our rational thinking can fade into the background.
So, it's less about being a bad parent and more about our primal instincts taking over?
Exactly. And for parents, these instincts are often amplified because we're juggling so many demands. Consider this. You're trying to multitask. You might be sleep deprived, you're worrying about work, chores, your child's well-being, and then suddenly there's spilled juice, a refusal to get dressed, or constant sibling arguments. It's the perfect recipe for impatience.
I can certainly relate to that perfect storm feeling. Are there specific triggers that tend to drain our patience the most?
Absolutely. One of the biggest culprits is what psychologists call unmet expectations. We hold an idea in our mind of how a situation should unfold. The child should eat their breakfast calmly. They should put on their shoes immediately. They should share without fuss. When reality diverges from that expectation, frustration naturally arises.
And children, by their very nature, don't always operate on our adult timelines or expectations. They are learning, exploring, and sometimes they're simply being children.
Precisely. Another major trigger is what we might call a loss of control. When a child is melting down or refusing to listen, it can feel like our authority or our ability to manage the situation is slipping away. This can be deeply unsettling and often leads to a more impatient, even authoritarian, response.
I see. So, unmet expectations and a perceived loss of control are key triggers. What else wears down our patience?
Repetition. Oh, the sheer, relentless repetition. Asking your child for the 10th time to pick up their toys or to stop banging on the table. That monotony can erode even the most patient individuals. There's also the element of feeling or appearing incompetent. If we feel like we're failing as parents or that our child's behavior reflects poorly on us, that can also fuel impatience.
Wow, those are significant triggers. It really highlights why our patience reservoir can feel so depleted. So, how do we actually start building that reservoir? It seems like it's more than just taking a few deep breaths, though that can help in the moment.
You're absolutely right. Deep breaths are a valuable tool for managing the immediate surge of impatience, but they don't build long-term resilience on their own. Building your patience reservoir is a deliberate, ongoing process. It involves shifting your mindset and implementing practical strategies. The very first step, as we've just outlined, is cultivating awareness. Understanding your personal triggers is fundamental. When you tend to become impatient, what specific situations push your buttons?
So, I need to become an amateur detective of my own reactions.
Exactly. You could keep a journal or simply take mental notes for a week. You might discover patterns. Perhaps it's always during the morning rush, or after a long day at work, or when you feel hungry. Once you identify your personal triggers, you can begin to anticipate them and prepare yourself.
Okay, awareness is step one. What's the next strategy for building this reservoir?
Step two is reframing your expectations. This is incredibly important. Children are not miniature adults. They have developing brains, they're learning social skills, and they are still mastering impulse control. Instead of expecting perfect behavior or immediate obedience, consciously adjust your expectations to be more age appropriate and realistic. Think about it this way. You wouldn't expect a toddler to run a marathon, would you? So, why expect them to possess the patience of a seasoned monk in every single situation?
That's a fantastic analogy. We need to adopt realistic expectations for what children are capable of at different developmental stages.
Precisely. And this connects to another powerful strategy, practicing mindful presence. When we're not fully present, our minds are often racing ahead to what's next or replaying something that just happened. This scattered focus makes us much more susceptible to frustration when interrupted. True presence means being fully engaged in the current moment, even if that moment involves challenging behavior from your child.
Mindful presence. That sounds quite difficult when you're in the middle of a toddler's meltdown.
It is, and that's why we begin with small, manageable steps. It could be 5 minutes of intentional focus during playtime, or truly listening to your child for just 60 seconds without your mind wandering. Over time, you gradually build that capacity for presence. This mindful attention also helps you notice those small positive interactions, which can serve as a powerful counterbalance to the frustrating moments.
So, awareness, realistic expectations, and mindful presence are key. What else can we do to actively build our patience?
Shifting your perspective is crucial. Instead of viewing a child's difficult behavior as a personal affront, try to see it as a form of communication. What might they be trying to tell you? Are they hungry? Tired? Overstimulated? Seeking attention? When you approach the situation with curiosity and a genuine desire to understand, it becomes much harder to remain impatient.
That's a powerful reframing. Looking for the underlying need behind the behavior, rather than just focusing on the behavior itself.
Exactly. And this naturally leads us to the concept of developing a patience toolkit. Just as you wouldn't tackle a complex task without the right equipment, you shouldn't navigate parenting without your own set of patience tools. This isn't as complicated as it sounds. It's simply a collection of go-to strategies you can draw upon when you feel your patience waning.
Tell us more about this toolkit. What kinds of things are in it?
It can include things like the deep breathing exercises we mentioned, But it can also involve having a pre-planned, calm-down space for yourself, even if it's just stepping into another room for 2 minutes. It might be a favorite calming quote or a mantra you repeat to yourself. It could be having a few engaging, quiet activities readily available for your child, so you can have a brief moment of respite. It can even be as simple as having a specific playlist of calming music queued up.
So, it's about having a plan of action prepared before the challenging situation arises.
Absolutely. It's about prevention and preparation. And another absolutely vital component of your patient's reservoir is self-compassion. We all have moments where we've lost our cool. Instead of dwelling on that and beating ourselves up about it, which only adds to stress and further erodes our patience. We need to offer ourselves the same kindness and understanding we would readily offer a struggling friend.
Self-compassion. That's often one of the hardest things for parents to extend to themselves, isn't it? We tend to hold ourselves to incredibly high standards.
We do. But remember, you are human. You are doing your very best in exceptionally demanding circumstances. Acknowledging that and forgiving yourself for imperfections is essential for preserving your emotional energy. It's not about achieving perfection. It's about being persistent and making gradual progress.
So, to quickly summarize what we've covered regarding building our patience reservoir. First, we become aware of our personal triggers. Second, we adjust our expectations to be more realistic and age-appropriate for our children. Third, we practice mindful presence to become more engaged in the current moment. Fourth, we shift our perspective to interpret challenging behaviors as communication. Fifth, we build a practical patience toolkit with go-to strategies. And sixth, we cultivate self-compassion, recognizing our humanity and acknowledging that we are doing our best.
That's a brilliant summary, Lisa. And remember, patience isn't some innate quality you're either born with or without. It's a skill, much like any other, that can be learned and significantly strengthened with consistent practice. It's about creating a deeper well, so that when life inevitably throws those curveballs, and it will, you have the capacity to respond calmly and effectively, rather than simply reacting and further depleting your energy. This, my friends, is the critical foundation for preventing parental burnout and fostering a truly calm and connected family environment.
It really is. And it's so empowering to realize that this isn't some elusive trait, but something we can actively develop. It's about building resilience, not just for ourselves, but for our entire family.
Exactly. And now that we've built this crucial foundation of patience, we can start to think about how we apply it in our relationships. Next episode, we'll be discussing the art of connected co-parenting. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time, we dove deep into building your patience reservoir. Today, we're tackling something many parents find challenging but incredibly rewarding: the art of connected co-parenting.
Connected co-parenting, that sounds like the holy grail for many families, doesn't it? We're talking about parents who might not be together romantically anymore, but who are absolutely on the same page when it comes to raising their children.
Exactly. And building on our last episode about patience, having a solid co-parenting foundation can significantly reduce stress for everyone, especially the kids. When parents are connected, it creates a more stable and predictable environment. Remember how we talked about how a calmer home benefits children? Connected co-parenting is a huge piece of that puzzle.
So, what does connected co-parenting actually look like in practice? It's not just about being civil, is it?
It's much more than just being civil. Connected co-parenting means actively working together as a team, even if you have different parenting styles or live in separate households. It's about a shared commitment to your child's well-being above all else. Think of yourselves as two coaches for the same team, the team being your child. You might have different coaching strategies, but your ultimate goal is the same: for the player to succeed.
That's a great analogy, Alex. So, the first step is that shared goal. What's next in building this collaborative partnership?
Effective communication is paramount. This is where many co-parenting relationships stumble. We often fall into traps of assuming, criticizing, or avoiding difficult conversations altogether. The key is to communicate proactively and respectfully.
Proactively and respectfully. Can you give us some concrete examples of how that looks?
Absolutely. Instead of waiting for a problem to arise, try regular check-ins. Even a quick text or email saying, "Hey, how are the kids doing with their homework this week?" Or just wanted to touch base about the school play next month. It's about keeping the lines of communication open. When you do need to discuss something more serious, try to set a specific time and approach it with a calm mindset. Remember that patience reservoir we built? This is where it really comes into play.
So, it's not about having these intense, unplanned, emotional discussions. It's more structured and thoughtful.
Precisely. And when you communicate, focus on I statements. Instead of saying, "You always let them stay up too late," try, "I feel concerned when the bedtime routine is extended as it impacts their morning." It shifts the focus from blame to your feelings and observations, making it easier for the other parent to hear and respond constructively.
That makes sense. It's less accusatory. What about when co-parents have very different parenting styles? That's a really common challenge.
That's a big one. Differing styles can lead to conflict. The most effective approach here is to identify the core values you both share for your children. Do you both value honesty, kindness, resilience? Focus on those shared values. Then, try to find common ground on specific issues. For example, if one parent is more lenient with screen time and the other is stricter, you might agree on a consistent limit for weekdays and perhaps allow a little more flexibility on weekends or agree that certain educational apps are acceptable.
So, it's about compromise, but guided by those shared parenting values. It's not about one parent winning an argument.
Never. It's about finding the best solution for the child. Another crucial element is presenting a united front. What does that mean? It means that when one parent makes a decision about something like discipline or a new routine, the other parent supports it publicly, even if they might have handled it differently.
Oh, that's a tough one. It's tempting to undermine the other parent, especially if you disagree.
It is incredibly tempting, but it's one of the most damaging things you can do to your child and to the co-parenting relationship. When children see their parents disagreeing or undermining each other, it creates insecurity. They might even try to play parents against each other, which is a terrible position to put them in. So, if you have a major disagreement about a decision, it's best to discuss it privately first, away from the children. Once a decision is made, both parents present it as a unified front.
That's such important advice. So, if one parent agrees to a certain consequence for a child, the other parent needs to back that up, even if they think a different consequence would have been better.
Exactly. You can then discuss your differing views later, privately. This builds trust and consistency for the child. It reinforces the idea that both parents are on the same team, working for their benefit.
This all sounds great in theory, but what about conflict resolution? Because let's be honest, disagreements are inevitable.
They absolutely are. When conflict arises, it's vital to have a process for resolving it constructively. Firstly, agree on a method for communication. This might be scheduled calls or emails. Secondly, during a conflict discussion, focus on the specific issue at hand, not on past grievances. Use active listening. Really try to understand the other person's perspective without interrupting or formulating your rebuttal.
Active listening. That means hearing not just the words, but the feelings behind them.
Yes, precisely. And then, when expressing your own point of view, do so calmly and factually. Avoid inflammatory language or personal attacks. And ultimately, aim for a solution that you can both live with, even if it's not perfect for either of you. Remember, the goal is to move forward, not to win the argument.
So, if you're stuck, maybe you can agree to disagree on minor things or try a new approach for a set period and then reevaluate.
Excellent point. Trial periods are fantastic for resolving disagreements. It allows you to test a solution without committing to it permanently. And sometimes, seeking outside help can be incredibly beneficial. A mediator or a co-parenting counselor can provide neutral ground and tools to navigate complex issues.
I can see how that would be helpful, especially if communication has broken down significantly. It's like having a referee in a sports game.
Exactly. And throughout all of this, always remember why you're doing it. Your children. Visualize their well-being. Imagine them feeling secure, loved, and supported by both parents. That mental image can be a powerful motivator when things get tough.
So, to recap for our listeners, connected co-parenting is about building a team with your co-parent, focused on your child's well-being. Key elements are proactive and respectful communication, finding common ground by focusing on shared values, and presenting a united front. When conflicts arise, use active listening and aim for compromise, perhaps with trial periods or professional help.
You got it, Lisa. And remember, this isn't about perfection. It's about consistent effort and a genuine willingness to work together. It's a skill that develops over time, and every step you take towards better co-parenting benefits your children immensely. It fosters their emotional security and shows them what healthy relationships look like.
It really does. And it's a journey that starts with small, consistent actions. Building on our last episode, this is where that patience really pays off.
Absolutely. And I think it sets us up perfectly for our next topic. We've talked about patience, we've talked about co-parenting communication, and next time, we're going to explore something that can be incredibly effective in fostering connection and managing behavior: playful discipline.
Playful discipline. I can already tell that's going to be fun. Join us next time as we explore connection before correction with playful discipline. Thanks for listening.
Welcome back. Last time we covered building your patience reservoir. Now, let's tackle playful discipline, connection before correction.
A crucial distinction, Alex. So often, we jump straight to telling a child they're wrong without understanding why, or without connecting with them first.
Exactly. Think about it. When a child misbehaves, what's at the root? Usually, a need isn't being met. They might be seeking attention, feeling overwhelmed, or testing boundaries. Traditional discipline often focuses on stopping the behavior, not addressing the need.
And that's where playful discipline comes in. It's not about letting kids walk over us, right? It's a different philosophy.
Precisely. It fundamentally shifts our perspective. Instead of viewing challenging behavior as bad, we see it as a signal that our child needs something. It's an invitation to connect, teach, and guide, rather than just punish. Remember episode 2 when we talked about patience? This is where it pays off. When we're not frustrated, we can actually see the teaching opportunity.
So, how do we shift from correction to connection? What does playful discipline look like in practice?
Great question. It starts with our mindset. We move from being the boss who doles out punishments to being a guide who helps children learn and grow. It's about understanding that their brain's control center is still developing. They are learning,
That's a powerful point. We expect adult self-control when their brains aren't fully formed.
right? And when they stumble, our first response shouldn't be shame or punishment. It should be, okay, let's figure this out together. Misbehavior is often a cry for connection. When a child feels disconnected, they may act out to get our attention, even negative attention.
I can see that. In episode 3, we discussed connected co-parenting. This idea of connection before correction feels like a natural extension applied to discipline.
Absolutely. Connection is the foundation. When a child feels seen, heard, and understood, they're much more receptive to our guidance. Imagine trying to teach someone when you've just yelled at them for a mistake. Are they in the best headspace to learn?
Probably not. they'll shut down or get defensive.
Exactly. But if you pause, acknowledge their effort, maybe make a lighthearted joke about a small error, and then gently guide them, they're more open to learning. Playful discipline applies that principle to our children.
So, when you say playful, does it mean making jokes when a child does something wrong?
It can, but not mockingly. It means bringing a lighter energy. It means using age-appropriate humor, silliness, or turning a difficult moment into a game. The goal is to defuse tension, reestablish connection, and then teach. It's about teaching how to behave rather than just punishing for not behaving.
Can you give an example? Let's say a toddler is throwing food at the dinner table.
Okay, classic. The traditional approach might be a stern no. That's enough, followed by taking the plate away. With playful discipline, we might try to connect first, get down to their level, make a silly face and say, wow, are you showing me your amazing soup throwing skills? That's quite an artistic splatter.
That takes the power struggle right out of it. It reframes the interaction.
Precisely. Another example, a child refusing to get dressed. Instead of nagging or threatening, turn it into a race. Okay, I bet I can get my socks on faster than you can. Ready, set, go. Or even, which outfit do you think this teddy bear wants to wear today? This red shirt or the blue one? You're engaging their imagination and will, but guiding them toward the desired outcome.
I love that. It feels so much more empowering for the child and, frankly, less stressful for the parent. It's about respecting their development and emotions.
Exactly. And it's not just for young children. For older kids, it might involve more verbal playfulness or wit. If a teen leaves dirty dishes in the living room, instead of a lecture, you might say, hey, I think your dirty dishes are staging a protest. Should we help them march back to the sink? It's a way to communicate your expectation without anger or resentment.
So, the playful part is really about the delivery of the message and the underlying intention, which is connection and teaching.
You've got it. And it ties directly back to what we discussed in episode 3 about co-parenting. When both parents are on the same page with this approach, it's incredibly effective. It presents a united, calm front to the child. It's not about mom does this, dad does that, but about a shared philosophy of connection before correction.
When we were talking about patience in episode 2, I remember you mentioning how it's a muscle we need to build. This type of discipline must require a significant amount of that built-up patience, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. It's impossible to be playful and connected when you're feeling depleted and frustrated. That's why self-care, which we'll cover later, is so vital. But even with a reservoir of patience, there are moments when we might slip back into old patterns. The key is not perfection, but progress.
So, if we do slip up, or if a child doesn't respond to the playful approach the first time, what then?
That's where the correction part, done with connection, comes in. If playful redirection doesn't work, we calmly state the boundary and the consequence. For instance, with the food-throwing toddler, if the playful approach doesn't stop it, we might say, I see you're still having fun throwing food. Since that's not how we use food at the table, mealtime is over. You're still calm, still connected, but enforcing the limit. The consequence is natural and related to the behavior.
So, the consequence itself isn't intended to be punitive, but rather a natural outcome of the action.
Exactly. It's about teaching them cause and effect. If you choose to throw food, then the food is no longer available. It's not about making them feel bad. It's about teaching them a different way. And importantly, after the consequence, once emotions have settled, you reconnect. It was hard when mealtime ended early, wasn't it? But we could try again next time. This reinforces that your love and connection are constant, even with consequences.
This connection before correction sounds like it fosters a much stronger, more trusting relationship with our children.
That's the ultimate goal. When children feel safe and understood, even during discipline, they're more likely to trust us with their feelings, their mistakes, and their challenges. They learn we are a safe harbor, not a threat. This builds resilience and self-esteem. They learn to regulate their own emotions because they've experienced us modeling that regulation, even in difficult moments.
It really reframes discipline from something to be feared to a learning opportunity.
You've hit on it perfectly, Lisa. We're moving from a model of control to a model of guidance. We're teaching our children how to navigate the world, how to understand their own emotions, and how to build healthy relationships, all through the lens of connection. It's about building their internal compass, not just enforcing external rules.
So, to recap, playful discipline is about seeing challenging behavior as an invitation to connect and teach, rather than an offense to be punished. It involves shifting our mindset, using age-appropriate humor or silliness to defuse tension, and then calmly guiding our children toward desired behaviors and consequences when necessary. The emphasis is always on maintaining and strengthening the parent-child connection.
Precisely. It's a profound shift, but one that yields incredible results in fostering calm, confident, and well-adjusted children. It's about raising children who understand the why behind the rules, not just the what.
It sounds like a challenging but deeply rewarding practice. It's about being present, patient, and playfully guiding.
And it integrates beautifully with the previous episodes. The patience we built, the connected co-parenting we discussed, they are all essential ingredients for successful playful discipline.
So, what's next for us?
Next episode, we'll explore the power of daily connection rituals. These are special moments woven into your day that anchor your family and deepen those crucial bonds.
Daily connection rituals. Building on that foundation of connection. Sounds wonderful. Thanks for listening.
Welcome back. Last time, we explored playful discipline. Now, let's discuss daily connection rituals.
We've talked about patience and discipline. How do we weave daily connection into our lives? What are these rituals, and why are they important?
Our days can be a whirlwind. In the chaos, precious moments of connection often get lost. Daily connection rituals are intentional, brief, and consistent interactions that anchor your family. They're steady points, reinforcing your bond and creating security and belonging.
So, it's not about grand gestures, but short, sweet, and regular touchpoints. That feels manageable for busy families.
Exactly. The beauty of these rituals is how they simplify discipline. When children feel seen, heard, and connected, they cooperate and respond positively to guidance. It's like building up a strong emotional bank account.
An emotional bank account. So, we make regular deposits of connection, meaning withdrawals for corrections have plenty to draw from.
Precisely. These rituals act as a buffer against conflict, strengthening the parent-child relationship. Remember, calm parenting relies on a strong, secure relationship. These rituals build that foundation daily.
Let's get practical. What are some examples of daily connection rituals?
Let's break them down by time of day. Mornings can be hectic, but a minute or two can make a difference. A warm embrace, a special handshake, or a quick, I love you, and I'm excited to see you today, as you send them off. It sets a positive tone.
A special handshake sounds fun. For me, a genuine smile and eye contact before the rush would feel grounding. Taking that extra second.
Absolutely. Then there's the transition from school. Instead of launching into homework questions, try a dedicated reconnection. A few minutes of focused listening. Greet them with a hug and ask, what was the most interesting part of your day? Or what made you laugh today?
That's a great way to hear about their day, not just academics. It shows you're interested in their emotional experience, It signals, I'm here for you.
Exactly. And speaking of listening, one of my favorite rituals is this special time. It's just a few minutes, maybe 5 to 10, where you give your child your undivided attention. No phones, no chores, just you and them. Let them lead building blocks, drawing, reading, or chatting.
This special time concept is powerful. It's like a mini date. The child leading is so important, isn't it? It gives them agency and control, which kids crave. It says, my interests matter.
Precisely. It's about respecting their world. Let them choose the activity. If they want to talk dinosaurs for 10 minutes, you dive in. If they want a superhero battle, you're the sidekick. This is where you fill that emotional bank account.
If a child is feeling disconnected or acting out, a few minutes of this focused special time can shift their behavior. It's like saying, I see you and I value you, which can de-escalate before difficulty.
Absolutely. It's proactive connection. Now, let's move to mealtimes. Mealtimes are a natural gathering point. Instead of silent meals or behavior interruptions, turn them into connection opportunities.
So, what does that look like? Less nagging about vegetables?
Ideally, yes. More importantly, it creates a space for conversation. Use conversation starters. What are you grateful for today? Or what's something new you learned? Or silly prompts like, if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
I like having prompts ready. It takes pressure off thinking up something on the spot. It encourages everyone to share, not just the kids. It's a way to learn about each other's day and thoughts relaxedly.
It fosters a shared family experience. Parents should participate too. Sharing your own thoughts and feelings, age appropriately, makes it reciprocal. It's not just an interrogation.
Right. It's about building that sense of we are in this together. And then we move to the end of the day. Bedtime is perhaps one of the most potent times for connection rituals.
Bedtime is gold. It's a natural winding down period, a time when children are often more receptive and day's tensions can surface. A consistent bedtime routine is a ritual, but adds special connection points. Reading a story, a gentle massage, or quiet chat.
Bedtime stories are incredibly connecting. A shared experience, a quiet moment of togetherness before sleep. The physical closeness, the cuddling, it's so comforting.
It truly is. Another wonderful ritual is the goodbye and hello at bedtime. Ask about any worries they might have, helping them process before sleep. Offer reassurance. Talk about what you're looking forward to tomorrow, another positive anchor.
Acknowledging lingering discomfort, offering comfort, and looking forward with a positive outlook. That's a beautiful way to end the day, tucking them in with peace and security.
You got it. These rituals don't have to be complicated or time-consuming. A consistent 5-minute hug, 10 minutes of child-led play, engaging dinner conversation, and a shared bedtime story. It's the consistency and intention that matter.
Consistency is key. Not one perfect thing once, but building these small moments into the routine. And intention, being present and focused. It's that consistent, intentional presence that builds strong connections.
These rituals evolve as children grow. What works for a toddler differs for a teenager. The core principle remains consistent, intentional moments of connection. For teenagers, it might be a quick text, a shared interest in a song, or a few minutes of active listening, even if they seem reluctant.
That's a good point, Alex. It's not one size fits all, and it adapts. It requires us to be observant and flexible. So, to recap, we've talked about morning greetings, reconnection after school, special time, engaging meal times, and calming bedtime routines. All opportunities to weave connection into our daily lives.
By weaving these rituals in, we're building a resilient family unit, a safe harbor where children feel loved, understood, and secure. This makes all aspects of parenting, including discipline and navigating challenges, smoother.
It really grounds the whole family, doesn't it? It creates that feeling of belonging and security that's the bedrock of happy, healthy families. It's about being present, not perfect.
Exactly. And this lays the groundwork for managing inevitable bumps like sibling rivalries, which we'll dive into next. You'll see how strong individual connections make managing conflicts between siblings much easier.
Fantastic. So, the takeaway for this episode is to consciously build in small, consistent moments of connection throughout your day. Make them intentional, be present, and watch your family's bond strengthen.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. These daily connection rituals are the anchors that keep your family connected and resilient. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time we covered daily connection rituals. Now let's tackle sibling rivalry.
Oh, Alex, this is the one so many parents dread, and yet it's so common. That constant bickering, the he started it, cries, the territorial disputes over toys. It can really test our patience even after we've worked on building that reservoir, right?
Absolutely, Lisa. And that's exactly why this episode builds so directly on what we discussed in episode 2 about patience and episode 5 about connection. Sibling rivalry, at its core, is often a cry for connection, a struggle for resources, and a testing of boundaries. When we can approach it from a place of understanding, rather than just frustration, we can transform these challenging moments.
So, instead of just stopping the fighting, we're aiming to understand why the fighting is happening. That's a really important distinction.
Precisely. Think about it from a child's perspective. Their world is often centered around their parents. And when another sibling enters the picture, it can feel like a division of that most precious resource, parental attention. Even if logically they know they have enough love, emotionally, they might feel a scarcity. This feeling of scarcity, or perceived unfairness, is a huge driver of conflict.
I can see that. It's like when you're at a concert and suddenly the spotlight shifts to someone else. You might feel a little overlooked.
That's a great analogy. So, the first step in managing sibling rivalry is recognizing that it's often about unmet needs, particularly the need for attention, validation, and a sense of individual importance. When we can identify that underlying need, we can start to address the root cause, not just the symptom of squabbling.
Okay, so if our child is fighting over a toy, it might not really be about the toy at all.
Often it's not. It might be their way of saying, hey, I feel ignored, or I want your undivided attention right now. Or it could be a struggle for a sense of control in their environment. Siblings are constantly negotiating their place in the family dynamic.
That makes so much sense. We've talked about connection rituals last time. How do those play into managing sibling conflict?
Connection rituals are the antidote. When children feel deeply connected to us and to each other, their need to compete for attention or validate their existence through conflict often diminishes. Regular, dedicated time with each child individually and also shared family time helps fill their connection tanks. When these tanks are full, they have less reason to act out and create drama to get noticed.
So, proactive connection is key to preventing the conflict in the first place. It's like building up a strong immune system for the family.
Exactly. And when conflict does arise, our response is crucial. Instead of immediately jumping in to punish or mediate a fair division of the toy, we want to first acknowledge the emotions involved. This is where the skills from episode 4, on connection before correction, come into play.
So, if they're screaming over a toy, we might say something like, I see you're both really upset about this. It looks like you both want to play with a red car right now. Validating their feelings, not the behavior.
Perfectly put, Lisa. By validating their emotions, you show them that you understand their struggle. This de-escalates the situation far more effectively than judgment. Then, you can move towards problem solving, but it's essential that the children are part of that solution.
How do we involve them in the solution when they're both worked up and probably not thinking rationally?
That's the art of it. We create a calm space, maybe invite them to sit with us for a moment, and then we can guide them. We might say, okay, we have one red car and two kids who want it. What are some ideas we can come up with so everyone gets a turn and feels happy? We're coaching them to be problem solvers.
So, we're teaching them negotiation skills?
We are. And we're teaching them empathy, thinking about what the other person might need or feel. It might take a few tries. They might suggest things like, you get it for 5 minutes, then you get it for 5 minutes. Or maybe, can we play with it together? These are all valuable outcomes. It might not always be a perfect, immediate solution, but the process of co-creating the solution is where the learning happens.
What if one child is consistently the aggressor, or one is always the victim? How do we handle that imbalance?
This is where we need to be particularly mindful of individual attention and also examine the roles children might be falling into. Sometimes, a child who is perceived as the aggressor might be acting out because they feel overlooked and are desperate for any kind of attention, even negative. Conversely, a child who is always the victim might be getting a lot of their needs met through the conflict itself.
So, we might need to spend more one-on-one positive time with the perceived aggressor and perhaps guide the victim to assert their needs more directly or find different ways to get attention.
Exactly. It's about understanding the function of the behavior for each child. We can also create specific special roles for each child that celebrate their unique strengths and contributions to the family. This helps them feel valued for who they are, not just for their compliance or their ability to win a fight.
I love that idea of special roles. It shifts the focus from competition to cooperation and individual contribution.
It really does. Another crucial aspect of managing sibling rivalry is setting clear, consistent boundaries around harmful behaviors. While we validate emotions, we absolutely do not permit hitting, biting, or destructive acts. This is where our patience reservoir from episode 2 becomes particularly important.
When those lines are crossed, we need to step in firmly but calmly.
Yes, and then often, after ensuring safety, we can circle back to the repair process, as we'll discuss more in episode 9. But the immediate response when safety is compromised needs to be clear. We might say, welcome back to the Calm Parenting Blueprint. Last time, we dove into taming the sibling storm and managing rivalry between brothers and sisters. Now it's time to talk about something that often gets pushed to the very bottom of a parent's to-do list, but is absolutely crucial: self-care.
Ah, self-care. It sounds so lovely, doesn't it? A spa day, a quiet hour with a book, but for most parents, it feels like a mythical creature. We know it's important, but finding the time and energy feels impossible.
Exactly, Lisa. And that's precisely why we need to reframe how we think about self-care in parenting. It's not a luxury, it's a non-negotiable essential. Think back to episode 1, where we introduced the calm parenting prescription. A core element of that prescription is a parent who isn't running on empty.
Right. If our own tanks are dry, we can't possibly pour anything into our children's cups, can we? We're much more likely to snap, to be impatient, or to feel overwhelmed. It makes the connected co-parenting we talked about in episode 3 and playful discipline from episode 4 so much harder to achieve.
This is so true. When we're depleted, our patience reservoir, which we discussed in episode 2, empties out much faster. We can't be present, we can't respond calmly to challenging behaviors, and we certainly can't maintain those daily connection rituals we highlighted in episode 5. Self-care is the fuel that keeps all of this running smoothly.
So, Alex, what are the biggest barriers parents face when it comes to practicing self-care? I can already guess a few.
You're right, there are common culprits. First, there's the guilt. Many parents, especially mothers, feel selfish for taking time for themselves when their children need them. They feel like they should be doing something else, something more productive for the family.
That guilt is a powerful anchor, isn't it? It ties us down and makes us feel bad for even thinking about our own needs.
Absolutely. Then there's the perception of time. Parents often feel they simply don't have any spare minutes. Between work, school runs, meals, homework, bathing, bedtime routines, and household chores, the day just evaporates.
And the energy. Sometimes the idea of exercising or engaging in a hobby feels more exhausting than doing another load of laundry.
Precisely. Another huge barrier is the lack of support. Sometimes parents feel isolated, like they're solely responsible for everything, which makes it incredibly hard to carve out any personal time. And finally, there's the simple habit. For years, parents have put themselves last, so prioritizing their own needs can feel unnatural or even foreign.
Okay, so we've identified the challenges: guilt, perceived lack of time and energy, lack of support, and the habit of self neglect. This sounds overwhelming. What are the actionable strategies? We need practical advice that doesn't feel like setting ourselves up for failure.
Let's start with reframing that guilt. Self-care isn't selfish, it's essential maintenance. Think of it like putting on your own oxygen mask on an airplane before helping others. You cannot effectively care for your children if you are mentally, emotionally, and physically exhausted. Your well-being directly impacts your children's well-being.
That's a powerful analogy. It makes it about survival and effectiveness, not indulgence.
Exactly. Now about that time crunch. We're not talking about grand gestures or hours of uninterrupted peace. We're talking about micro moments. Can you find 5 minutes to drink a cup of tea in silence? Can you spend 10 minutes stretching while the kids are watching a short show? Can you listen to a podcast you enjoy on your commute instead of just stressing about the day ahead?
So, instead of aiming for an hour at the gym, it's about finding those tiny pockets of time throughout the day.
You've got it. These small, consistent acts create a cumulative effect. It's about finding what replenishes you, not what you think self-care should be. For some, it might be a few minutes of deep breathing. For another, it might be an uninterrupted shower. For yet another, it could be a quick walk around the block alone.
I like the personalized approach. It's not one size fits all. What if we don't have a partner or immediate support system? How can we build that in?
That's a critical point. First, communicate your needs clearly to your partner, if you have one. Explain why self-care is important for your family. If you don't have a partner, or if they're not supportive, get creative. Can you trade childcare with a trusted friend or neighbor? Can you ask a grandparent for a few hours of help once a month? Even short bursts can make a difference.
Sometimes, just knowing that it's okay to ask for help is the first hurdle.
It truly is. And let's address the energy issue. What energizes you? For some, it's movement, even gentle movement. For others, it's creativity, quiet reflection, or connecting with nature. Try to identify one small activity that genuinely makes you feel a little lighter, a little more alive, and build that in. Even if it's just 5 minutes. Picture this, you're feeling frazzled. Instead of scrolling mindlessly on your phone, you step outside for 3 minutes of fresh air and some deep breaths. That small act can be incredibly restorative.
It's about intention, isn't it? Intentionally choosing something that nourishes you, however small.
Precisely. And it's also about setting boundaries. This is a tough one for parents, but essential. It means learning to say no to extra commitments that will drain your energy. It means sometimes protecting your time fiercely. We're talking about your capacity to parent well, and that capacity is directly linked to your own well-being.
So, let's bring this back to the core of calm parenting. When we neglect ourselves, our ability to be patient diminishes. Remember how much patience we need for effective co-parenting, for navigating sibling squabbles, and for those everyday moments of connection? Without self-care, our patience reservoir is like a leaky bucket.
It's completely accurate. Burnout isn't just an unpleasant feeling. It actively sabotages our parenting efforts. It makes us less present, less connected, and less resilient. When we're burned out, discipline becomes reactive rather than responsive. Our ability to engage in playful interaction with our children dwindles.
And it impacts our emotional regulation. When we're running on fumes, even small stressors can feel like catastrophic events. We are less equipped to handle our own emotions, let alone help our children manage theirs.
Exactly. So, how can we actively build a self-care habit? We can start by scheduling it. Just like you'd schedule a doctor's appointment or a child's soccer practice, schedule your self-care. It doesn't have to be long, but it does need to be present on your calendar.
And hold that appointment sacred. Protect it.
Hold it sacred. Yes. Another strategy is to identify your self-care non-negotiables. These are the absolute minimum things you need to do to feel somewhat human. For one parent, it might be drinking enough water throughout the day. For another, it might be getting at least 6 hours of sleep, if at all possible. For someone else, it might be 5 minutes of quiet before the kids wake up. What are your absolute must-haves?
I think for me, it would be a few minutes of quiet reflection in the morning, just to set an intention for the day, and making sure I actually eat a proper lunch, not just grazing on crumbs.
Those are great examples, Lisa. And remember the daily connection rituals we talked about? Even 5 minutes of focused, present connection with a child can be a form of self-care for the parent too. Seeing their joy, sharing a laugh, it refills our own energy. It reminds us why we're doing all of this.
That's a wonderful point. It's not always about doing something for ourselves, but also about experiencing moments that nourish our spirit through our children.
Absolutely. So, to recap, self-care is not an indulgence. It is a vital foundation for effective, calm parenting. The barriers are real: guilt, lack of time and energy, and lack of support. But they can be overcome with a shift in perspective and practical strategies. We've talked about reframing guilt, embracing micro moments of care, seeking support, identifying energizing activities, and setting boundaries. Your well-being is directly tied to your ability to be the calm, connected parent you want to be.
And it's a continuous practice. Some days will be easier than others. The key is to keep coming back to it, even when it's hard.
That's the spirit. Prioritizing your own needs is an act of love for yourself and for your family. It's about sustainability. It's about preventing burnout so you can show up as your best self.
It truly is the non-negotiable essential.
It is. And this focus on our own capacity and well-being naturally leads us into our next topic. If we're going to practice self-care and be patient and connect deeply, we also need to have realistic expectations. Because unrealistic expectations are a surefire way to lead to frustration and burnout.
That makes perfect sense. So, next time, we'll be exploring how to set realistic expectations for ourselves and our children.
We'll see you then for episode 8. Welcome back. Last time we covered self-care as a non-negotiable parenting essential. Now let's tackle realistic expectations.
I'm excited about this topic, Alex. I think expectations are one of those things we don't even realize we're carrying around until they get challenged, right?
Absolutely, Lisa. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. Expectations are powerful, invisible forces in parenting. They shape how we react to our children's behavior, how we evaluate our own performance as parents, and ultimately, how much joy or stress we experience in our parenting journey.
That's so true. I remember when my first child was born, I had all these ideas about what good parenting looked like. Then reality hit, and I was completely unprepared.
We've all been there. Today, we're going to dive deep into understanding expectations in parenting, both the expectations we have for our children and the expectations we have for ourselves. Unrealistic expectations can lead to frustration, disappointment, and burnout, and we'll provide practical tools to help you adjust your expectations to align with the beautiful, sometimes messy, reality of parenting.
This feels really important, especially after episode 1 where we talked about burnout prevention. Because if our expectations are too high, aren't we just setting ourselves up for that burnout?
Exactly right, Lisa. That's a perfect connection. Unrealistic expectations are like pouring water into a bucket with holes. No matter how much effort you put in, it never feels like enough. And that's a recipe for burnout. Let's start by talking about what expectations actually are in the parenting context. Expectations are the beliefs we hold about how things should be, how our children should behave, how we should feel as parents, how quickly our children should develop certain skills.
So they're not just about our kids, but about ourselves too?
Absolutely, Lisa. Expectations come in two main categories: expectations for our children and expectations for ourselves as parents. Both can be sources of stress when they're unrealistic.
That makes sense. I definitely have both kinds. Like, I expect my kids to listen the first time I ask them to do something, and I expect myself to always be patient and calm.
Those are perfect examples, Lisa. And here's the thing: expectations aren't inherently bad. They give us direction and goals. But when they're disconnected from reality, they become problematic. So, what happens when our expectations are unrealistic? First, frustration builds when reality doesn't match expectations. This is that feeling of, why isn't this working, when we've followed all the advice and things still aren't going as planned.
Oh, that feeling. It's so familiar. It's like you're trying to solve a puzzle, but you're missing half the pieces.
Exactly. And this frustration often leads to disappointment in ourselves or our children. We might think, what's wrong with me? Or why can't my child just do this? When really, it's the expectation that's the problem, not the person.
And then there's the guilt that comes with that disappointment, right? Like, if I'm disappointed in my child, I feel guilty for feeling that way.
You've hit on something crucial, Lisa. The disappointment from unrealistic expectations often leads to guilt, which then creates a vicious cycle. We feel disappointed, then guilty about feeling disappointed, which makes us more stressed, which actually makes parenting harder, confirming our negative expectations.
It's like a downward spiral.
Precisely. And the third major consequence is burnout, which we discussed in episode 1. When we constantly face situations that don't meet our expectations, it's emotionally draining. Over time, this leads to burnout, that feeling of being completely depleted and unable to give anymore.
So, unrealistic expectations are directly connected to burnout. That's an important connection to make.
Absolutely. Now, where do these unrealistic expectations come from? Understanding this is the first step toward adjusting them. One major source is social media. We see these perfect images of families, always smiling, always well behaved, always accomplishing amazing things.
The highlight reels of other people's lives. It's so easy to compare our behind the scenes reality to everyone else's highlight reel.
Exactly, Lisa. Another source is our own childhood experiences. Many of us subconsciously expect to parent the way we were parented, or conversely, to do the complete opposite. Our past experiences shape our expectations, often without us even realizing it.
That's interesting. I never thought about how my own parents' style might be influencing my expectations.
And our personal values play a huge role too. If we highly value academic achievement, we might expect our children to excel in school from a young age, regardless of their natural inclinations. If we value independence, we might expect our children to be self-sufficient earlier than developmentally appropriate.
So these expectations are coming from multiple directions: external influences like social media, internal ones like our past, and value-based ones.
That's right. And understanding these sources helps us recognize that our expectations aren't necessarily right or wrong. They're just influenced by our experiences and values. This awareness is the first step toward adjusting them to be more realistic. Now, let's talk about how to identify unrealistic expectations. This is where we can get practical. One powerful technique is to simply notice when you're feeling frustrated or disappointed with your child's behavior or your own parenting.
So those feelings are signals?
Absolutely, Lisa. Your emotions are valuable data points. When you consistently feel frustrated, angry, or disappointed in a particular situation, ask yourself, what expectation am I holding here that's not being met?
That's a great reframing. Instead of just feeling frustrated, using it as information.
Precisely. Another technique is to ask developmental questions. Is my expectation developmentally appropriate for my child's age? For example, expecting a 3-year-old to sit quietly through a long restaurant dinner might be unrealistic.
Oh, that's such a common one. I remember learning about developmental milestones and thinking, oh no, I've been expecting things that are just not possible for this age.
And that leads us to our third tool, research and education. Understanding typical child development can help us create more realistic expectations. A quick search or conversation with a pediatrician can give you age-appropriate expectations.
I found that so helpful when I actually learned about brain development. It made so much more sense why my toddler was having meltdowns. Their brain was literally not capable of regulating emotions yet.
That's exactly right, Lisa. When we understand the why behind behavior, our expectations naturally become more realistic. Now, let's talk about adjusting expectations to match reality. This isn't about lowering standards or giving up on growth. It's about aligning our expectations with developmental realities while still encouraging positive development.
That's an important distinction. It's not about lowering expectations, but making them realistic.
Exactly, Lisa. One approach is to focus on process over outcome. Instead of expecting your child to always share nicely, expect them to struggle with sharing sometimes. Celebrate the small improvements rather than focusing on perfection.
That makes sense. It's like celebrating the effort rather than just the result.
Precisely. Another strategy is to create a developmental reality check. Take time to research what's typical for your child's age, temperament, and individual circumstances. This helps you create a baseline of realistic expectations.
I love that idea. It's like creating a customized guide for your own child based on who they actually are, not some generic ideal.
And that leads us to perhaps the most important strategy, individualizing expectations. Every child is unique with their own temperament, strengths, challenges, and developmental timeline. What's realistic for one child might not be for another.
That's so true. My two kids are so different, and what works for one doesn't always work for the other. I had to learn to adjust my expectations for each of them individually.
That's exactly the point, Lisa. Now, we've talked a lot about expectations for our children, but let's not forget about the expectations we have for ourselves as parents. These can be just as problematic as unrealistic expectations for our kids.
Oh, yes. The perfect parent expectation is a tough one. I think most of us carry that to some degree.
Absolutely, Lisa. One common unrealistic expectation is expecting ourselves to always be patient and calm. As we discussed in episode 2 about building your patience reservoir, patience is a skill that gets depleted and needs refilling, not something you have an unlimited supply of.
That's such a relief to hear sometimes, that it's okay not to be perfectly patient all the time.
Another unrealistic expectation is expecting ourselves to always know the right thing to do in every situation. Parenting is full of uncertainty, and it's okay to not have all the answers.
I needed to hear that. I feel like I should have some secret parenting manual that I just haven't found yet.
And finally, many parents expect themselves to never make mistakes. But we're human, and mistakes are part of parenting. The key is how we respond when we make them. Now, let's talk about some practical exercises for adjusting expectations. First, try creating an expectation inventory. Take some time to write down the expectations you have for your children and for yourself as a parent. Be as specific as possible.
That sounds like a good exercise. I'm curious about what I'd actually write down.
Once you have your inventory, go through each expectation and ask these questions. Is this expectation developmentally appropriate? Is this realistic for my child's temperament? Is this realistic for me as a parent? What evidence do I have that this expectation is reasonable?
That's a great way to really examine each expectation.
Another powerful exercise is to reframe expectations as goals. Instead of, my child should always listen, reframe it as, I'm working toward helping my child develop better listening skills. This shifts from a rigid expectation to a flexible goal.
That's a really helpful distinction. It makes it feel more like a journey rather than a pass/fail test.
Exactly. And here's a third exercise. Create a realistic expectations mantra. This is a short phrase you can repeat to yourself when you notice you're slipping into unrealistic expectations. Something like progress, not perfection, or my child is exactly who they need to be.
I like that. Having something to say to yourself in the moment could really help interrupt that negative spiral.
Now, let's connect this back to some of our previous episodes. In episode 2, we talked about building your patience reservoir. Unrealistic expectations are one of the quickest ways to drain that reservoir. When you constantly expect more than is realistic, you're constantly frustrated, which depletes your patience.
That makes so much sense. No wonder I was running out of patience so quickly when my expectations were off.
And in episode 1, we discussed burnout prevention. Unrealistic expectations are a major contributor to parental burnout because they create a constant state of dissatisfaction and striving that can never be fully satisfied.
So, adjusting expectations is actually a form of self care and burnout prevention.
Precisely. It's about setting yourself up for success rather than setting yourself up for frustration. Now, let's summarize what we've covered today. We've discussed how expectations work in parenting, the consequences of unrealistic expectations, where these expectations come from, how to identify unrealistic expectations, and practical strategies for adjusting them to be more realistic.
And we've seen how this connects to our earlier episodes on patience and burnout prevention.
Exactly. Remember, adjusting expectations isn't about lowering standards or giving up on growth. It's about aligning our expectations with developmental realities while still encouraging positive development. It's about creating space for ourselves and our children to be human.
That's such an important perspective shift. It's not about less, it's about more appropriate.
Well said, Lisa. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought. Parenting is not about meeting some external standard of perfection. It's about creating a relationship with your child that is authentic, connected, and supportive. Realistic expectations are the foundation of that relationship.
That's beautiful. I think that's going to stick with me.
Next episode, we'll be diving into healing from conflict, the repair process. We'll explore how to reconnect with your child after disagreements and conflicts, turning those moments into opportunities for growth and deeper connection.
I'm looking forward to that. Conflict can be so stressful, and having tools to repair those moments would be invaluable.
It definitely will be. Until then, remember to check your expectations regularly and adjust them to match the beautiful, sometimes messy, reality of parenting. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time we covered realistic expectations and how setting yourself up for success can transform your parenting journey. Now let's tackle something crucial that every family faces: healing from conflict through the repair process.
Alex, that's so important. We all have those moments with our kids where we might lose our
To raise children calmly, we need to build a harmonious emotional culture at home.
That sounds like the big picture. What exactly is a family emotional culture?
Picture your home's emotional atmosphere. Is it like a stormy sea or a calm harbor? A harmonious emotional culture is when your home becomes that safe harbor, a space where feelings flow freely without turning into tsunamis. It's where everyone learns to surf the waves of emotions together.
And we've built the tools for this over the past episodes, haven't we? Like patience as our anchor rope?
Exactly. Remember the concept of building your patience reservoir? That's your emotional fuel. But alone, patience isn't enough. We also need connected co-parenting as your steering wheel, parents rowing in the same direction. And playful discipline? That's your sail, catching the wind of connection instead of fighting against correction.
So the daily connection rituals become your predictable lighthouses, beacons that guide the family ship?
Perfect analogy. Daily rituals create rhythm in the chaos. Like when we talked about the goodbye, hello routine, a consistent emotional tide that keeps everyone grounded. And sibling rivalry management tactics? Those become your life jackets for navigating rough waters between kids.
What about the deeper currents, like self-care and realistic expectations?
Self-care is your oxygen tank. If parents aren't breathing calmly, the whole crew panics. And realistic expectations? That's your depth sounder, preventing you from crashing into should reefs. You learn that expecting a toddler to act like a teenager is like demanding a sailboat to move like a speedboat.
And the repair process, that's the ship's emergency kit when you hit icebergs?
Bingo! Repair turns I ruined everything into we fix together. But here's the magic. None of these work in isolation. Patience without co-parenting creates friction. Discipline without connection feels like punishment. Rituals without repair become empty routines. They're interwoven threads in the same emotional tapestry.
So how do we actually weave them? Give me a real-life example.
Imagine your 4-year-old melts down because you cut their sandwich wrong, a small wave in adult terms, but a tsunami to them. With patience, you breathe instead of snapping. With co-parenting, your partner doesn't undermine you. With playful discipline, you turn it into, oh no, the sandwich monster ate the corners. Let's rebuild it with superhero toppings.
And the daily connection rituals would kick in later with,
Yes, after we rebuild, let's have our tea party snack time, just like we do every Friday. That's when self-care kicks in too. While they snack, you sip your tea, modeling calm. Realistic expectations remind you that this age has big feelings over small things. And if you snapped, repair turns, mommy yelled into mommy got frustrated. I'm sorry. Let's hug it out.
so the culture is how we respond to waves, not the waves themselves?
Exactly. The emotional culture isn't about never having storms. It's about building a fleet where everyone knows how to deploy life jackets when waves hit. It's the difference between a family that drowns in conflict and one that learns to swim together.
What about when multiple waves hit at once? Like sibling fights plus work stress?
That's where all systems sync. Sibling rivalry tactics become your first responders. I see two captains on this ship. Let's use our rock, paper, scissors peace treaty. Self-care prevents you from capsizing. Co-parenting means you trade anchor duties. And repair turns we survived the storm into we weathered it together.
This sounds like we've been building an emotional ecosystem. How do we know if it's working?
Watch the everyday ripples. Do kids start regulating their own emotions faster? Do conflicts end with solutions instead of tears? Do parents apologize first? That's your ecosystem thriving. Like a garden, when you tend to patience, connection, and repair regularly, the whole environment blooms.
And if something's wilting, where do we go for deeper tuning?
Great timing. For the next few episodes, we're doing deep dives into our toolkit. Mastering patience techniques, advanced co-parenting communication, creative discipline scenarios, navigating sibling rivalry, crafting self-care blueprints, reframing expectations for different ages, and mastering family emotional regulation. We're taking these concepts from theory to hands-on practice.
So this episode is the blueprint, and the next ones are the construction manuals?
Precisely. We're seeing how all the principles of calm parenting create one cohesive emotional home. Remember connection before correction? That's the golden thread weaving everything together. When connection leads, discipline follows. When connection guides, repair happens naturally. When connection anchors, even storms become learning moments.
Thanks for listening.
Welcome back to the Calm Parenting Blueprint. Today, we deepen our dive into building your patience.
That's right, Alex. Because as we know, our patience reservoir can feel like it empties so quickly sometimes. What are some specific techniques we can add to our personal toolkit to help us stay calmer, especially in those high-pressure parenting moments?
Absolutely. Let's start with a foundational technique, mindfulness. At its core, mindfulness is simply about paying attention to the present moment without judgment. Often, our frustration stems not from what's happening right now, but from our thoughts about it or worries about what might happen.
So, it's not about having a blank mind, but about being more aware of what's actually happening and what we're thinking and feeling in that moment.
Exactly. A very simple mindfulness exercise is conscious breathing. When you feel that familiar heat rising, that urge to react impulsively, take just a few seconds to focus on your breath. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly. Notice the sensation of the air as it enters and leaves your body. This doesn't fix the problem at hand, but it creates a small pause, a crucial buffer between the trigger and your reaction. This pause allows your brain to shift from that reactive, fight or flight mode to a more deliberate, thoughtful response.
That sounds so simple, but I can see how that micropause could be incredibly powerful. It gives you a moment to choose your response instead of just letting the instinct take over.
Precisely. And this action has a basis in neuroscience. When we're stressed or angry, our amygdala, which acts like our brain's alarm system, becomes highly active. Mindfulness practices like focused breathing can actually help to calm the amygdala. This then gives the prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain responsible for rational thought and decision making, a chance to come back online. It's akin to giving your brain a brief reset.
A reset. That's a great analogy. So, conscious breathing is one tool. What else can we incorporate?
Another highly effective technique is what experts call naming it to tame it. This comes from research in child development. When you can accurately label your own emotions, or even your child's emotions, it significantly diminishes their power over you. So, instead of just feeling a swirling frustration, you might calmly acknowledge to yourself, okay, I'm feeling really frustrated right now because the toys are not being put away.
And that helps because it makes the emotion less overwhelming, less like a giant wave, and more like a specific feeling that we can then address.
Yes, that's a perfect way to describe it, Lisa. By naming the emotion, you are acknowledging its presence. You're not fighting it. You're not judging yourself for having it. You are simply identifying it. This act of identification can create a bit of distance, allowing you to observe the feeling rather than being completely engulfed by it. It's about externalizing the emotion, giving it a label, and in doing so, regaining a sense of control.
So, rather than thinking, I'm so angry I can't stand it, it shifts to something like, anger is present. That's a subtle but significant change in how we relate to the feeling.
Absolutely. And this principle also extends to understanding our children's emotions. When a child is experiencing a tantrum, often the most helpful thing we can do is to state, it looks like you're feeling really angry right now, or I see you're feeling disappointed because we have to leave. By reflecting their emotion back to them, you not only help them understand their own feelings, but you also deepen your connection with them.
That's such a valuable point. It reinforces the importance of connection that we've discussed in previous episodes. It shows our children that we see them, we acknowledge their feelings, and that validates their entire experience.
Indeed. Now, let's discuss sensory grounding. Sometimes when we feel overwhelmed, our thoughts can race, and we might feel disconnected from ourselves. Sensory grounding brings us back to our physical bodies and the observable world around us. This can be as straightforward as noticing 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste.
Oh, I've encountered that technique before. It's like a mental checklist that helps pull you out of your head and firmly into the present moment by engaging your senses. So, for instance, I could look around and identify the blue of the lamp, the grain of the wooden table, the green leaves of a plant, the texture of a book cover, and the frame around a picture. Then I could touch the soft fabric of my shirt, the cool surface of the table, the smooth pages of the book.
Exactly. And by actively engaging your senses, you interrupt those spiraling thoughts. You are effectively anchoring yourself in the here and now. This is particularly useful when you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed, as it redirects your focus away from your internal distress and towards external, tangible sensations.
It's like a brief mental getaway, pulling your mind away from the stress triggers. And I can see how this strategy could also be helpful during a difficult interaction with a child. By focusing on your senses, you are not directly engaging with the conflict, but you are gaining that much needed pause and a clearer perspective.
Precisely. Another powerful tool is reframing your thoughts. Our thoughts have a profound impact on our feelings and subsequent reactions. If you consistently think, this is impossible, or my child will never listen, those thoughts will inevitably fuel your frustration. Reframing involves consciously challenging those negative thought patterns and actively replacing them with more balanced, realistic, and constructive ones.
This is where the concept of realistic expectations that we covered in episode 8 truly becomes relevant, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, instead of thinking, my child is deliberately trying to annoy me, try reframing it as, my child is likely testing boundaries, which is a normal part of their development. Or, instead of this is impossible, consider, this is challenging, but I have successfully navigated difficult situations before, and I can find a way through this. It's about shifting your mindset from a problem-centric view to a solution-oriented approach.
It's not about ignoring reality, but about choosing a more empowering interpretation of that reality.
Exactly. And sometimes the most overlooked tool is also one of the most profound: self-compassion. We, as parents, are frequently our own harshest critics. When we make a mistake or lose our temper, we can fall into a pattern of self-recrimination. However, remember that perfection is not the objective. Growth and connection are the true aims.
Self-compassion feels like a wonderful antidote to that common parental guilt. How can we actively practice it?
It begins with acknowledging that parenting is one of the most demanding roles there is, and it's completely natural to struggle sometimes. When you feel that impulse to criticize yourself, pause and ask yourself, what would I say to a very close friend who was in this exact situation? You would likely offer kindness, understanding, and words of encouragement. So, extend that same kindness and understanding to yourself. Remind yourself that you're doing your best under challenging circumstances, and that making mistakes is an inherent part of being human and an inherent part of the parenting journey.
That's such a comforting reminder. It's like offering yourself a gentle, mental embrace. And this really circles back to episode 7, doesn't it? When we make self-care a priority, we are essentially replenishing our own energy, which makes it so much easier to access and utilize these patience-building tools.
Oh, it's fundamentally connected. You simply cannot pour from an empty cup. By actively engaging with these patience-building techniques, you are, in effect, practicing proactive self-care. You're not waiting until you're completely depleted to address your needs. You are consciously building your resilience. So let's quickly recap these powerful tools for your patience toolkit. Mindful breathing to create essential pauses, naming your emotions to tame them, sensory grounding to anchor yourself in the present, reframing your thoughts for a more empowered perspective, and finally, self-compassion, offering yourself grace and kindness.
Those are such practical and accessible strategies, Alex. I feel I have a much clearer picture now of how to actively cultivate and expand my patience rather than simply waiting for it to magically appear. And the way these techniques are rooted in the principles of connection, neuroscience, and child development makes them feel really grounded and trustworthy.
And the wonderful aspect of these tools is their versatility. You can employ them anytime, anywhere. They don't require special equipment or a significant amount of time. Even a few seconds of focused breathing or a brief moment of self-compassion can make a noticeable difference in how you navigate challenging parenting moments.
I'm very motivated to start integrating more of these practices. It feels like a more sustainable and effective approach to parenting calmly.
It truly is. And as we become more adept at managing our own patience, we become better equipped to handle a wider range of challenging family dynamics. Speaking of which, in our next episode, we'll be undertaking a deep dive into even more advanced communication strategies, specifically tailored for co-parents. We will explore how to navigate disagreements and collaboratively build a stronger, more unified approach for your children, even if you're no longer in a partnership.
Oh, that's such a critical area for so many families today. I'm really looking forward to that discussion.
As am I. So, for today, remember to breathe, name it, ground yourself, reframe, and extend kindness to yourself. These are your powerful allies in the practice of calm parenting. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time we covered the art of connected co-parenting. Now let's tackle advanced co-parenting communication strategies that will transform how you navigate complex family dynamics together.
I'm excited about this one, Alex. We covered the basics of co-parenting communication back in episode 3, but there's so much more depth to explore. What makes communication strategies truly advanced?
Great question, Lisa. Advanced co-parenting communication goes beyond simply talking to each other. It's about creating a sophisticated system where both parents feel heard, respected, and empowered even when disagreements arise. Remember when we discussed conflict resolution in episode 9? These advanced strategies build directly on those foundation principles.
Right, the repair process. So, what's the first advanced technique we should explore today?
Let's start with enhanced active listening. Most people think they know how to listen, but truly effective listening in co-parenting requires specific techniques. First, we have what I call full presence listening. This means putting away your phone, turning away from screens, and giving your co-parent your complete attention. It's not just hearing words, it's understanding the emotions and intentions behind them.
That makes sense. How does this differ from regular active listening?
Regular active listening often involves nodding and saying, I hear you. Full presence listening goes deeper. It means you're not just waiting for your turn to speak. You're genuinely trying to understand your co-parent's perspective. Picture this. When your co-parent shares something important, imagine you're a detective trying to understand their complete thought process, not just collecting evidence for your argument.
I like that analogy. So, what's the second component of advanced communication?
The second technique is what I call empathetic mirroring. This goes beyond paraphrasing what your co-parent said. Instead, you reflect not just the content, but the underlying emotions. For example, if your co-parent says, I'm worried about how the kids are handling our schedule changes, instead of just saying you're concerned about the schedule, you might say, it sounds like you're feeling anxious about how these changes might be affecting our children emotionally.
That's powerful. So you're naming the emotion rather than just repeating the words.
Exactly. Research shows that when people feel their emotions are recognized, they're much more likely to collaborate effectively. This technique creates emotional safety between co-parents, which is essential when discussing sensitive topics like parenting approaches.
How does this connect to the conflict resolution strategies from episode 9?
Great connection, Lisa. Remember how we discussed the importance of emotional regulation during conflicts? Empathetic mirroring is actually a practical application of those principles. When you recognize and validate your co-parent's emotions, You're de-escalating potential tension before it escalates into conflict. It's like applying emotional first aid before the wound becomes serious.
That's a perfect analogy. What's the third advanced technique we should explore?
The third technique is what I call assertive positioning. Many co-parents struggle with finding the middle ground between being passive and aggressive. Assertive positioning means clearly stating your needs, boundaries, and preferences while still respecting your co-parent's perspective.
Can you give a concrete example?
Sure, let's say you have a different approach to homework time than your co-parent. Instead of saying you're doing it wrong or staying silent and resenting their method, you might say, I've noticed that when we use different approaches for homework, the kids seem confused. I'd like to discuss creating a consistent approach that works for both of us. What time this week would be good to talk about this?
That's very different from how many parents communicate. Instead of blaming or criticizing, you're focusing on the shared goal and inviting collaboration.
Precisely. Assertive positioning uses I statements, focuses on specific behaviors rather than character attacks, and always invites dialogue rather than shutting it down. This approach dramatically reduces defensiveness and increases the likelihood of finding mutually beneficial solutions.
This is making me realize how much communication patterns affect our ability to co-parent effectively. What's the fourth advanced technique?
The fourth technique is creating a communication triad. This means consistently involving the children in age-appropriate ways while maintaining the co-parenting relationship as the foundation. Many well-meaning parents accidentally put children in the middle of adult conflicts, which creates loyalty burdens and emotional stress.
How do you create this triad without involving children in inappropriate ways?
The key is establishing clear boundaries and roles. Children should never be messengers between parents, therapists, or decision makers. Instead, create structures where children have appropriate input while parents maintain final responsibility. For example, you might ask a 10-year-old, how do you feel about having dinner with dad on Wednesdays, rather than when should dad pick you up on Wednesdays?
That's a subtle but important distinction. The first question invites their feelings, while the second puts them in a decision-making position they're not equipped to handle.
Exactly. The communication triad respects everyone's role in the family system while ensuring children feel heard within appropriate boundaries. This technique prevents children from feeling responsible for solving adult problems.
These techniques are building on each other beautifully. What's the fifth advanced strategy?
The fifth technique is what I call preventive communication scheduling. Most co-parenting communication happens reactively when problems arise or crises hit. Advanced co-parents schedule regular communication check-ins before problems occur.
That sounds smart. How often should these check-ins happen?
The frequency depends on your family's needs, but a good starting point is a weekly 15-minute call or a bi-weekly longer conversation. During these scheduled times, you can discuss upcoming events, review how recent transitions went for the children, and address any minor concerns before they become major issues.
This reminds me of how businesses have regular meetings to stay aligned. You're applying that same principle to co-parenting.
Precisely. Preventive communication scheduling creates structure and reduces the anxiety that comes from unpredictable communication patterns. It also ensures both parents have dedicated time to discuss important matters without feeling rushed or defensive.
What's the sixth and final advanced technique you'd like to share today?
The sixth technique is developing a communication hierarchy. This means establishing clear protocols for different types of communication. For example, urgent matters about children's safety might require immediate phone calls, while scheduling changes could go through a shared calendar app.
So you're creating different channels for different types of information?
Exactly. A communication hierarchy prevents minor issues from disrupting everyone's day and ensures truly urgent matters get immediate attention. It also reduces conflict by creating clear expectations about when and how different types of information should be shared.
These six techniques, full presence listening, empathetic mirroring, assertive positioning, communication triads, preventive scheduling, and communication hierarchies, seem incredibly powerful. How do co-parents start implementing these strategies?
The key is to start small. Pick one technique that resonates with you and your co-parent and practice it consistently for 2 weeks before adding another. It's also helpful to schedule a time to discuss these techniques as a parenting team, perhaps during one of those preventive communication check-ins we discussed.
That sounds manageable. How long does it typically take for these advanced communication strategies to feel natural?
Most co-parents report noticeable improvements within 3 to 4 weeks of consistent practice, though it can take 2 to 3 months for these approaches to become second nature. The important thing is to celebrate small victories along the way and remember that you're building new communication habits that will benefit your family for years to come.
This has been so valuable, Alex. These advanced communication strategies really build on the foundation we established in episode 3 and connect beautifully with the conflict resolution principles from episode 9.
Absolutely, Lisa. Effective communication truly is the cornerstone of successful co-parenting. By implementing these advanced techniques, co-parents can create a supportive environment where children thrive and both parents feel respected and heard.
I'm curious, what's coming next in our series?
Next episode, we'll explore creative, playful discipline scenarios. We'll move beyond the basic discipline concept from episode 4 to examine sophisticated approaches that maintain connection while teaching important life lessons.
That sounds fascinating. I can't wait to learn more about creating positive discipline experiences that actually work.
Thanks for listening. Welcome back to the Calm Parenting Blueprint. Today we're diving deep into creative, playful discipline.
This is where we put the ideas from episode 4 into practice, making discipline an opportunity for connection, not a battle.
Exactly. We've built on those daily connection rituals. Playful discipline leverages that existing connection. When kids feel connected, they're more receptive to guidance.
So, instead of just saying no, we find ways to redirect their energy and teach without shaming.
Precisely. Let's jump into some real-life scenarios. Imagine your young children playing too enthusiastically with a ball indoors. What's a typical reaction?
Stop that. You'll break something. Go outside. And then frustration from me and protests from the kids.
Now, reframe that using playful discipline. Say, with a playful tone, oh, is that a runaway boomerang? We need to catch it before it goes through the ceiling. You might make a game of safely landing the airplane or collecting space rocks.
Oh, I love that. You're transforming it into something safe and fun, guiding them to understand that type of play isn't appropriate indoors.
Exactly. You're acknowledging their energy, but redirecting it. You teach them about safety without a lecture and keep the connection alive with a shared story.
That makes so much sense. It taps into their imagination and meets them where they are.
Another scenario, your child refuses to tidy up their toys. The toys are everywhere, and the call to clean up is met with groans.
The personal favorite, the toy explosion.
So, rather than a demand, clean up your toys now. Try a playful approach. Turn it into a race against an imaginary clock. This is an emergency. The toy cleanup crew has to get everything back in the toy box before the music stops. Put on a short, upbeat song.
And make sound effects for when they put a toy away, like a whoosh into the box.
Absolutely. Or Toy Island Treasure Hunt. Every toy returned to its spot is a gem. Talk about which toys are going back to live in their house in the toy box.
That's brilliant. It's like a game, and the prize is completing it. It removes the power struggle.
Precisely. It shifts the focus from the chore to the play. You're framing the responsibility as a fun challenge. Remember, this builds on those connection rituals. If you've dedicated time connecting, they're more likely to engage.
So the foundation of connection makes these playful discipline techniques so much more effective. It's about the relationship.
Spot on. Let's try another one. Your child is dawdling when it's time to get ready for bed or leave the house. You're running late.
Oh, the dreaded dawdling. Time just expands.
Indeed. Instead of nagging, hurry up. We have to go. Try gamifying. For bedtime, let's see if we can transform into sleepy sloths and do our routine in super slow motion. But careful, the giant hand of the clock is sneaking up on us.
That's so funny. Turning the slowness, the frustrating part, into the game.
Exactly. Or for leaving the house. We're secret agents on a mission. Our mission is to get from the front door to the car without touching any purple objects on the floor.
I can see how that would capture a child's attention and make them part of the solution, rather than seeing you as the antagonist.
That's the goal. When they're an active participant, they're more invested. Another challenge, minor tantrums or meltdowns. When a child is overwhelmed, they're not in a logical state. Reasoning with them can be like talking to a brick wall,
And our frustration only escalates it.
right? So, instead of joining their intensity, acknowledge their feelings with a playful twist. If a child is weeping because they can't have a cookie before dinner, you could say, with an exaggerated sigh, "Oh no, the cookie monster has been spotted. Quick, kids, can you help me build a pretend cookie monster proof fort around the cookie jar?"
So you're not denying their desire for the cookie, but making the prevention part of the game. It's a way of saying, I see you're upset, and we'll deal with that need within our family rules, but we can still have fun.
You've hit the nail on the head. You're validating their emotion while guiding the behavior. This approach doesn't shut them down. It allows for their big feelings but frames the response playfully. It's like offering a gentle hand to guide them through the storm.
It redirects their energy and focus. Instead of dwelling on no cookie, they're engaged in the Cookie Monster Fort.
Exactly. And as they get a little older, you can introduce more elaborate, story-based discipline. If a child is having trouble sharing, say, this toy is feeling a bit lonely and wants to make a new friend, let's help it by letting other child's name have a turn. Then, when other child's name is done, the toy will be super excited to play with you again.
So you're giving the toy agency, like a character, and framing sharing as helping the toy connect with others.
Yes, and you're also subtly teaching them about taking turns and the cyclical nature of play. It's a far cry from a stern, share that. It's not yours.
It really is. And the key takeaway here is that this playful discipline isn't about being permissive. It's about being firm, but in a fun, connection-centered way.
Absolutely. It's about being the calm, guiding adult who can see the humor and the opportunity for teaching, even in challenging moments. It transforms discipline from a chore into an adventure.
So, to recap, we've looked at transforming indoor ball playing into a game of catching boomerangs, turning toy cleanup into a treasure hunt or race, making bedtime or leaving the house a secret agent mission, and gamifying the prevention of pre-dinner cookie eating.
And we saw how to use storytelling, like giving toys agency, to encourage sharing. The core principle is to always prioritize connection. We're using playfulness to teach, to guide, and to strengthen our relationships. This approach makes discipline a positive experience, fostering cooperation and understanding.
It turns discipline into a dance, not a duel. It builds resilience and a positive self-image in children because they feel understood, even when corrected.
You've got it. This kind of discipline is a powerful tool for raising cooperative children who understand boundaries, but also feel empowered and loved.
This has been so insightful, Alex. It gives us practical, actionable ways to reframe those everyday discipline moments.
Wonderful. As we move towards the end of our series, we'll tackle an area many families find challenging, navigating intense sibling rivalry. Join us next time for Deep Dive, Navigating Intense Sibling Rivalry. Welcome back. Last time we covered the basics of sibling rivalry. Now let's tackle the intense situations.
And I'm Lisa. Those intense sibling conflicts can be so draining. I know many parents who feel completely overwhelmed by these situations.
Exactly. Today, we're going deep on navigating intense sibling rivalries. We'll cover de-escalation strategies, mediation techniques, and how to teach your children problem-solving skills so they can eventually handle conflicts independently, all while maintaining your calm presence.
That sounds incredibly practical. What makes some sibling conflicts so much more intense than others?
Great question. Intense rivalry often stems from perceived inequality in attention, resources, or parental approval. When one child feels consistently overlooked or compared unfavorably, resentment builds. Also, developmental differences play a big role. A teenager's need for independence can clash with a younger child's desire for connection, creating friction.
That makes sense. And personality differences probably intensify things too? Like if you have one child who's very assertive and another who's more passive?
Absolutely. Those dynamics can create power imbalances that fuel conflict. When one child consistently gets their way and the other feels unheard, the rivalry becomes about gaining control rather than sharing space. Add in sleep deprivation, hunger, or other stressors, and even small disagreements can explode into major conflicts.
So, when does sibling rivalry cross from normal to potentially harmful? How do parents know when to step in more forcefully?
When conflict becomes chronic, involves physical harm, includes consistent bullying, or when one child shows signs of significant emotional distress, these are red flags. If your child is experiencing anxiety, depression, or school problems related to sibling interactions, it's time for more structured interventions. Remember, though, some conflict is actually healthy. It teaches negotiation skills and emotional regulation.
That's an important distinction. So, let's talk about de escalation. What can parents do in the heat of the moment when things are already getting intense?
First, recognize your own emotional state. If you're feeling angry or anxious, your children will pick up on that. Take a deep breath and maybe even step away for 30 seconds if needed. When you approach the situation, keep your voice calm and your body relaxed. Avoid taking sides immediately. This just escalates the conflict.
What's the first thing you say when you walk into a room where your kids are fighting intensely?
Start by acknowledging both children's feelings without judgment. I can see both of you are very upset right now. This validates their emotions without approving of the behavior. Then, create a physical space between them if needed. Let's take a break from each other for a few minutes to cool down. Giving everyone space to reset is crucial.
That makes sense. But what if they refuse to separate? What if they're both screaming and won't calm down?
In those moments, you might need to be more directive. We need to stop this right now. Everyone to their rooms until we can talk calmly. The key is to remain firm but not angry. You're not punishing, you're creating safety. Sometimes, you might need to physically separate them, but do so calmly and without aggression.
I've found that using a timer helps. We'll check back in 10 minutes when everyone has had time to calm down. It gives a concrete endpoint to the separation.
That's a great strategy. And when you do reconvene, make sure each child has a chance to speak without interruption. This is where mediation comes in. But before we dive deeper into mediation, let's remember that our calm presence during these moments is teaching our children how to handle conflict themselves. When they see us staying regulated, they learn that emotional regulation is possible even when things feel overwhelming.
So once the immediate heat has been reduced, how do we step into mediation? What's the goal of that process?
Mediation is about helping children communicate their needs and find solutions that work for everyone. The goal isn't to decide who's right or wrong. It's to help them understand each other's perspectives and collaborate. When we mediate, we're teaching skills that will serve them their entire lives: conflict resolution, empathy, and compromise.
That's such an important shift from being a judge to being a coach. What's the first step in the mediation process?
Start by setting the ground rules. We're going to talk about what happened and everyone gets to speak without being interrupted. We're looking for solutions that work for everyone, not winners and losers. Then, have each child describe what happened from their perspective without blaming. This is where active listening comes in, really hearing what the other person is saying without planning your response while they're talking.
How do you handle situations where one child clearly started the conflict? Do you address that first?
It's tempting, but starting with blame usually just creates defensiveness. Instead, focus on feelings and needs. What happened that made you feel upset? This opens the door to understanding rather than accusation. Often, the instigator is actually reacting to something that happened earlier or feeling insecure in some way.
That's a great point. So the focus shifts from who started it to what need wasn't met here?
Exactly. And this is where the real learning happens. Once both children have shared their perspectives without interruption, help them identify what they needed but didn't get. Maybe one needed quiet space to read, while the other needed attention from a parent. When we understand the underlying needs, finding solutions becomes much easier.
What if they can't articulate their needs, especially if they're younger? How does mediation work with preschoolers or early elementary kids?
For younger children, you might need to help them put words to their feelings. It seems like you were feeling frustrated when your brother took your toy. Or you wanted mom to watch you build your tower, but she was helping your sister instead. Giving them language for their emotions helps them develop emotional literacy, which is crucial for conflict resolution. Then, brainstorm solutions together. What could we do differently next time? Encourage them to come up with their own ideas first. This builds problem-solving skills and ownership of the solution. You might need to offer some suggestions, but let them choose what they think will work.
I love that. It's not about imposing your solution, but empowering them to create their own. What if their ideas aren't realistic or fair?
You can guide them by asking questions. How would that work if there are only 2 cookies but 3 kids? Or if we do that, how do you think your sister would feel? This helps them consider consequences and adjust their thinking. The goal is to find solutions that address everyone's needs as much as possible, even if perfect equality isn't achievable.
And what about ongoing conflict? Sometimes we implement a solution, but the same problem keeps happening the next day. How do we handle that?
When patterns emerge, it's time for more structured problem solving. You might create a family meeting specifically to address the recurring issue. This gives everyone a chance to contribute to a more comprehensive solution. It also teaches that some problems need more thoughtful consideration than quick fixes.
That's where the long-term skill building comes in. But let's talk about something we haven't mentioned yet. How do we teach children to solve these problems independently without always needing us to mediate?
This is the ultimate goal. We start by teaching them the language of conflict resolution. When you feel upset, try saying, I feel underscore, because underscore. Practice this during calm moments so they have the tools when conflict arises. Also, create a peace corner or calm down space where they can go when they feel overwhelmed, giving them agency to manage their own emotions.
What age-appropriate steps would you suggest for teaching independent problem solving?
For preschoolers, start with simple choices. Would you like to take turns or set a timer? For elementary kids, teach the stop. Think, choose method, stop the conflict, think about options, choose a solution. For teens, help them practice negotiation and compromise skills. The key is gradually releasing responsibility as they demonstrate readiness.
And throughout all of this, our own self-regulation as parents is crucial, especially during high-stakes moments. How do we maintain that calm presence when our buttons are being pushed?
This connects directly to our earlier episodes on self-care. When we're well rested and have our own emotional needs met, we're better equipped to handle intense situations. During conflicts, focus on your breathing. Remember that this moment will pass, and trust that you're capable of handling it. It's also okay to say, I need a moment to think before responding.
That's such an important reminder. Our calm presence isn't about being perfect, it's about being regulated enough to guide the situation constructively.
Exactly. And remember that intense sibling conflict is often a reflection of our family's emotional culture. When we model healthy conflict resolution and create an environment where all feelings are accepted but all behaviors aren't, we're building the foundation for how our children will handle relationships for the rest of their lives.
So, to recap, when facing intense sibling rivalry, we first de escalate by creating space and recognizing our own emotional state. Then we mediate by helping children communicate needs and find solutions. Gradually, we teach them to use these skills independently, all while maintaining our own calm presence.
That's perfect. And remember, it's not about eliminating all conflict. That's neither possible nor desirable. It's about teaching children how to navigate conflict constructively, building skills that will serve them throughout their lives. Next episode, we'll craft personalized self-care blueprints to help us maintain the calm presence we need during these challenging moments.
Can't wait to dive into that. Thanks for joining us today on the Calm Parenting Blueprint.
Welcome back to the Calm Parenting Blueprint. Today, we're crafting your personal self-care blueprint.
Welcome back. Last time we covered navigating intense sibling rivalry. Now, we're diving deep into crafting your personalized self-care blueprint. We know from episode 7, Self-Care, the non-negotiable parenting essential, how vital this is, but today we're moving beyond general advice into creating a plan that truly works for you.
Exactly. We've talked a lot about building patience and connecting with our kids, and those are all fantastic. But if we're running on empty, none of that is sustainable. This episode is about refilling our own tanks so we can show up as the calm, connected parents we want to be. We'll be connecting back to episode 8, where we discussed realistic expectations, because self-care needs to be realistic too.
That's right, Alex. So, let's start by acknowledging that self-care can feel like another item on an already overwhelming to-do list. Many people hear self-care and immediately picture spa days or long vacations. While those are wonderful, they're not always accessible or sustainable for busy parents. Our goal today is to redefine self-care into a series of small, intentional actions that fit into your real, everyday life.
I think that's the key, isn't it? It needs to feel achievable, not like another source of guilt. So, Alex, where do we begin when creating this?
We begin with you. The absolute first step is self-awareness. You need to understand what truly nourishes you and what drains you. This isn't about what you should be doing, but what actually recharges your batteries. Think about your energy levels throughout the day. When do you feel most depleted? When do you feel a spark of energy or joy?
That's a great starting point. So it's about really tuning into our own internal signals. What kinds of things might we be looking for?
Look for activities or moments that leave you feeling more peaceful, more energized, more present, or simply less stressed. It could be something as simple as 5 minutes of quiet with a cup of tea, a brisk walk around the block, listening to a favorite song without interruption, or even just taking 10 deep breaths. On the flip side, identify what drains you. Is it endless scrolling on social media? Constant news consumption? Unresolved conflicts that linger?
Okay, so understanding our personal energy drains and life givers. It's like taking an inventory of our emotional and physical resources.
Precisely. And this inventory needs to be honest. Don't judge yourself for what you need. If what recharges you is watching a silly reality show for 20 minutes, that's valid. The aim is to identify what genuinely helps you recover. Once you have a clearer picture of your energy drains and life givers, we can start building the blueprint.
And how do we translate that understanding into a concrete plan?
We start by categorizing. Think of self-care in different domains. This helps ensure we're nurturing ourselves holistically. We'll call these categories our self-care pillars. A good set of pillars to start with are physical, mental, emotional, and social.
Physical, mental, emotional, and social. I like that. It covers a lot of ground. So, for the physical pillar, what would that look like for a busy parent?
The physical pillar is about tending to your body. This doesn't have to be a hardcore gym routine. It could be ensuring you're drinking enough water throughout the day. Often, fatigue is just dehydration. It's about trying to get adequate sleep, even if it's broken. It's about moving your body in a way that feels good. Maybe it's stretching for 5 minutes when you wake up, a short walk during your lunch break, or a dance party with your kids in the living room.
A dance party counts? I love that. So, it's not about becoming a super athlete, but about small, consistent acts of physical well being.
Exactly. Consistency over intensity is the mantra here. Now, for the mental pillar. This is about feeding your mind and giving it a rest from the constant demands of parenting and life. This could involve reading books that interest you, listening to podcasts, like this one, that expand your knowledge or offer insight, or engaging in a hobby that requires focus, like puzzles or learning a new skill.
So, it's about engaging our brains in ways that are stimulating but also restorative, not just adding more to the mental load.
Right. And sometimes mental self-care is simply about giving your mind a break. Mindfulness exercises, even just a minute or two of focusing on your breath, can be incredibly powerful. It helps interrupt the cycle of anxious thoughts or endless to-do lists. So, for your blueprint, you might list: drink a glass of water upon waking, take a 10-minute solo walk twice a week, or listen to one chapter of an audiobook daily during my commute.
Those feel very manageable. Now, on to the emotional pillar. This one feels a bit more abstract.
It can be, but it's crucial. The emotional pillar is about acknowledging and processing your feelings rather than suppressing them. This might involve journaling your thoughts, talking to a trusted friend or partner about your feelings, or engaging in activities that help you express emotions creatively, like drawing or listening to music that resonates with your mood.
So, it's about giving ourselves permission to feel what we feel and finding healthy ways to navigate those emotions.
Yes. And it also includes cultivating positive emotions. This could be practicing gratitude, deliberately focusing on what you appreciate in your life. Or it could be spending time with people who uplift you. For your blueprint, you might jot down things like: spend 5 minutes journaling before bed, or call a supportive friend when I'm feeling overwhelmed, or make a list of 3 things I'm grateful for each morning.
That makes sense. It's about building our emotional resilience by both processing challenging feelings and nurturing positive ones. And finally, the social pillar.
The social pillar is about connection. For parents, this can be tricky because often our social interactions are with our children or about our children. It's important to nurture connections with other adults. This could mean scheduling regular coffee dates with a friend, having meaningful conversations with your partner, joining a parent group, or even just a quick chat with a neighbor.
And it doesn't have to be elaborate, right? Even short, quality connections can make a big difference.
Absolutely. It's about quality over quantity. You might write down: text a friend just to say hello, or schedule a weekly 30-minute call with my sister, or plan one date night with my partner each month. Remember, these are all examples. Your blueprint will be unique to you.
So we've got these four pillars: physical, mental, emotional, and social. How do we start slotting actual, concrete actions into them? Because the what is one thing, but the how and when is another.
This is where the blueprint aspect really comes in. We need to look at your current schedule and identify pockets of time. Think about your daily rhythm. Where can you realistically carve out even 5 to 10 minutes? It might be during your commute, during your lunch break, while the children are napping or engaged in independent play, or even for a few minutes before everyone else wakes up or after they've gone to bed.
So it's not about adding an hour to your day, but about repurposing existing minutes.
Exactly. And we need to be realistic. Recall our discussion in episode 8 about setting realistic expectations. If you know your mornings are chaotic, don't schedule your most demanding self-care activity then. If evenings are exhausting, a complex meditation might not work. Choose times and activities that align with your energy and your actual daily flow.
It's about working with your life, not against it.
Precisely. And then we need to make it a habit. This is where repetition comes in. Start small. Pick just one or two activities from each pillar that feel manageable and schedule them for the week. For example, let's say you choose drink a glass of water first thing, physical, listen to one podcast episode on my drive to work, mental, take 3 deep breaths when I feel overwhelmed, emotional, and send one text to a friend each day, social.
That sounds quite achievable.
It is. And once those feel like second nature, you can gradually add more. The key is to build momentum. Think of it like building muscle. You don't start with marathon training. You start with a short jog. You also need a fail-safe for when life inevitably throws you a curveball. What happens when you miss a day or a week?
Ah, the perfectionism trap.
Exactly. This is where the blueprint needs to be flexible. If you miss a planned self-care moment, don't abandon the whole plan. Just acknowledge it, forgive yourself, and recommit to the next opportunity. Maybe you planned a 30-minute walk, but only have 10 minutes. 10 minutes of movement is far better than none. This is where realistic expectations truly shine through.
So a built-in grace period or a reset button.
Yes, a way to get back on track without derailment. Another important aspect of a personalized blueprint is to anticipate potential roadblocks. What usually gets in the way of your self-care? Is it interruptions? Lack of time? Feeling guilty? Once you identify these, you can brainstorm proactive solutions. For example, if interruptions are an issue, perhaps you can communicate your self-care time to your partner or older children. If guilt is a factor, remind yourself that self-care isn't selfish. It's essential for being a good parent.
That connection back to our parenting is so important. It reframes self-care from a luxury to a necessity for effective parenting.
Absolutely. And as you've probably noticed, all of this connects back to our earlier episodes. Remember episode 1, the calm parenting prescription, and how we emphasized foundational well-being? This is it. This is the practical application of that prescription. And think about episode 10, cultivating a harmonious family emotional culture. A parent who is depleted cannot contribute to a harmonious emotional culture. Your self-care directly impacts your family's emotional environment.
It's all interconnected. Self-care isn't just for us, it benefits the entire family. So, to recap for our listeners, crafting your personalized self-care blueprint involves: first, honest self-awareness, identifying your energy drains and life givers. Second, establishing self-care pillars: physical, mental, emotional, and social. Third, identifying concrete, manageable activities within each pillar that fit your lifestyle. Fourth, realistically scheduling these activities into your day, repurposing existing time. And finally, building in flexibility and anticipating roadblocks to ensure sustainability.
That's a perfect summary, Alex. And remember, this is an ongoing process. Your needs will change as your children grow, as your life circumstances shift. Regularly revisit your blueprint, perhaps quarterly, to ensure it's still serving you. What worked last year might not work today.
So, it's a living document, a blueprint that evolves with you.
Exactly. And this personalization is what makes it effective. Generic advice can only go so far. Your unique needs, your unique schedule, your unique personality all play a role in what self-care truly looks like for you. Imagine your blueprint as a custom-tailored suit of armor. It's designed specifically for you to help you navigate the battles of parenting with resilience and grace.
I love that analogy. A suit of armor, but one that nourishes you at the same time. So, as we move toward the end of our series, this deep dive into self-care is really setting the stage for integration. It's about equipping ourselves with the tools and the energy to truly implement everything we've learned.
Precisely. This is a crucial stepping stone. By the time we finish the series, you'll have a comprehensive understanding of how to maintain calm, connected, and harmonious family life. Your personalized self-care blueprint is the engine that keeps all of that running smoothly. It's the foundation upon which everything else is built.
This has been incredibly practical, Lisa. I feel inspired to go and really refine my own blueprint.
That's the goal. Now, before we wrap up this episode, I want to remind you all to revisit episode 7, where we first introduced the importance of self care, and episode 8, where we discussed realistic expectations. These episodes provide a great foundation for the deeper work we've done today.
And importantly, this is the final deep dive episode before we bring all together. Next episode, reframing expectations for different ages and stages.
That's right. So, until then, take some time to reflect on your own needs. What one small self care action can you commit to in the next 24 hours? And remember, your well being matters. Thanks for listening.
Welcome back. Last time we covered crafting your personalized self-care blueprint. Now let's tackle reframing expectations for different ages and stages.
That's right, Alex. And this topic is so important because, as parents, we often forget that our kids aren't little adults. They're developing at different rates, and what we expect of them needs to match where they are developmentally.
Absolutely, Lisa. Think about it this way. If you've ever tried to teach a toddler to tie their shoes, you know how frustrating it can be when they just can't get it. But that frustration comes from expecting something they're not developmentally ready for yet.
Exactly. So, what are the key age groups we should be thinking about when it comes to expectations?
Great question. Let's break it down by developmental stages. Babies, roughly 0 to 12 months. Toddlers, 1 to 3 years. Preschoolers, 3 to 5 years. School-age children, 6 to 12 years. And teens, 13 to 18 years. Each has very different capabilities and limitations.
Starting with babies, what should parents realistically expect?
This is where many parents set themselves up for frustration without realizing it. Babies can't understand rules. They can't control their impulses, and they definitely can't manipulate you intentionally. They cry to communicate needs: hunger, discomfort, fatigue, or the need for comfort.
But some people seem to think babies are being difficult on purpose, right?
That's a common misconception. Babies operate purely on instinct and immediate needs. They don't have the cognitive ability to plan or manipulate. So, expecting a baby to behave during dinner or sleep through the night consistently is unrealistic. Instead, focus on responding to their needs and building trust.
That makes so much sense. What about toddlers?
Toddlers are fascinating because they're beginning to understand cause and effect, but they still have very limited impulse control. They're exploring boundaries, not challenging authority. When a toddler says no, it's not defiance, it's them practicing independence.
I remember when my son was a toddler and would throw food on the floor. At first, I thought he was being naughty, but then I realized he was just experimenting with gravity.
Perfect example. Toddlers need to test limits to understand their world. Expecting them to sit quietly for long periods or share all their toys immediately sets everyone up for failure. Instead, offer simple choices, use redirection, and remember that their attention spans are very short, typically 2 to 3 minutes per year of age.
So a 2-year-old might only focus for 4 to 5 minutes at a time?
Exactly. And that's completely normal. When we expect more, we get frustrated and they sense that stress, which often makes their behaviors worse.
Moving on to preschoolers. They seem more capable, but still have limitations.
Preschoolers are developing rapidly in their language and social skills, but they still think very concretely. They struggle with abstract concepts like time, future consequences, and understanding others' perspectives. This is why they might have big emotions over seemingly small things. Their world is very immediate.
My daughter once had a complete meltdown because I cut her sandwich the wrong way. At the time, I couldn't understand why it mattered so much.
What's happening there is that she's developing a sense of autonomy, and control. The sandwich represents something she can control in a world where she has very few choices. Preschoolers need lots of practice with making decisions and understanding rules, but they need those rules to be simple and consistent.
And what about school-aged children?
This is where children start developing more abstract thinking and better impulse control. They can understand consequences better and can delay gratification to some extent, but they're still learning how to manage their emotions and navigate social situations.
I've noticed my 8-year-old can understand that if he doesn't do his homework now, he'll have less time to play later. But he still struggles with big emotions when he loses a game.
That's developmentally perfect. School-age children are developing executive function skills like planning, organizing, and self-control, but these are still works in progress. They can handle more responsibility, but need guidance and support. Expecting them to always make good choices or regulate their emotions perfectly is unrealistic.
And finally, teenagers. This seems to be where expectations often get really out of sync.
Teens are dealing with incredible brain development, particularly in areas related to impulse control, decision-making, and emotional regulation. The part of the brain responsible for these functions isn't fully developed until the mid-20s. So, while teens might look and act like adults in many ways, their brains are still undergoing massive changes.
So when parents expect teens to make consistently rational decisions or never have mood swings, they're asking for something that's neurologically challenging?
Precisely. Teens need more independence to develop their identity, but they still need guidance and boundaries. The key is to shift from controlling to coaching. Instead of making all their decisions, help them think through consequences and make their own choices with safety nets.
This all makes me think about how our expectations affect co-parenting too. If one parent expects a toddler to sit quietly through a restaurant dinner while the other understands that's unrealistic, that could create conflict.
Absolutely. This is where the topic of co-parenting communication becomes so relevant. When parents have different expectations based on their understanding of child development, it can lead to frustration and conflict. Having shared knowledge about what's developmentally appropriate helps create a united front.
So, how can parents get on the same page about age-appropriate expectations?
Great question. First, educate yourselves about typical development. Resources that outline developmental milestones can be helpful. Second, discuss openly with your partner about what behaviors are typical at each age. Third, be willing to adjust your expectations when you realize they're unrealistic.
And what if we realize our expectations have been too high? How do we course correct?
Start by acknowledging it to yourself and your child. I realized I was expecting too much from you earlier. That wasn't fair. Then, adjust your approach. For a toddler, that might mean shorter activities. For a teen, it might mean more discussion before making decisions. It's never too late to adjust your expectations.
This all connects back to something we discussed earlier in the series, the importance of realistic expectations setting your family up for success.
Exactly. When expectations match developmental capabilities, there's less frustration, more connection, and better behavior. It's like building a staircase. You don't skip steps. You meet your child where they are and guide them forward from there.
So, to recap today's key points, babies communicate through needs, toddlers test boundaries to understand their world, preschoolers need simple choices and rules, school-aged children are developing executive function but still need support, and teens need independence within boundaries as their brains continue developing.
And across all ages, adjusting our expectations to match where our children actually are developmentally reduces stress for everyone and creates a more peaceful home environment. Remember, the goal isn't to lower standards, but to match them to reality.
This has been really helpful for me to think about. I know I've been frustrated with my kids at times, maybe because my expectations weren't quite right for their age and stage.
We've all been there. The beauty is that once we understand what's typical, we can adjust our approach and see dramatic improvements in how our children respond and how we feel as parents.
This series has given so much practical advice.
Next episode, we'll be diving into the art of emotional regulation in families. We'll explore how to help children manage their big feelings and how parents can model healthy emotional responses themselves.
That sounds essential. Emotional regulation really is at the heart of so much parenting success.
Absolutely. And we'll build on many of the concepts we've discussed throughout this series. So be sure to join us for that deep dive into emotional regulation. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Now, let's tackle the art of emotional regulation in families.
And it's such a critical skill, Alex. We've talked about building patience, fostering connection, and navigating sibling rivalry. But how do we do any of that effectively when emotions are running high?
Exactly, Lisa. Emotional regulation is the ability to understand, manage, and express our emotions in healthy ways. It's not about suppressing feelings, but about learning to respond to them rather than react impulsively. Think of it like having a well-organized toolkit for your feelings.
A well-organized toolkit. I like that. So, it applies to both parents and children?
Absolutely not. In fact, one of the most powerful ways parents can help their children develop emotional regulation is by modeling it themselves. When we can stay calm, we're teaching our children through our actions. This connects back to building your patience reservoir. If that's depleted, our own ability to regulate suffers, impacting our children.
It does. And when we're regulated, it's easier to tap into connection. Instead of escalating frustration, we can approach situations with empathy.
Precisely. When a child is having a tantrum, it's easy to feel overwhelmed or angry. But if we've practiced emotional regulation, we can access calm. We can recognize their intense emotions are a sign of distress, and our calm presence can be a soothing anchor. This is where playful discipline becomes crucial. You can't be playful when you're losing your own cool.
So, for parents, what does practicing emotional regulation look like in everyday life?
Great question. It starts with self-awareness. Taking a moment to identify what you're feeling. Naming the emotion can be incredibly powerful. Then it's about employing coping mechanisms. Deep breathing is a classic for a reason. Imagine taking a slow, deep breath, filling your lungs, and then exhaling slowly. Repeating this a few times can reset our nervous system.
I found that too. Sometimes just a few conscious breaths can stop me from saying something I'll regret. And physical outlets?
Definitely. For parents, this might mean stepping away for a moment if you feel yourself getting too heated. Go for a quick walk, do some stretching, or have a glass of water. It's about creating a small buffer between the feeling and the action. It's like hitting a pause button.
That's so important. And for children, how do we help them regulate?
This is where our discussions on creative discipline scenarios become crucial. When a child is upset, we can help them by co-regulating. This means helping them through their big feelings. Instead of saying, "Stop crying," we can say, "I see you're feeling really sad right now. It's okay to feel sad. Would you like a hug?"
So, we're validating their emotions, not dismissing them.
Exactly. Validation is key. We can also help children by teaching them simple strategies. For younger kids, this might be a comfort object or a quiet corner. For older children, it might involve teaching them to identify their own triggers and develop coping strategies. We could talk about calming down techniques. Maybe it's listening to music, drawing, or writing in a journal.
It sounds like it's about equipping them with a toolbox of their own. We're teaching them how to manage these feelings so they feel more in control. This reminds me of our discussion on realistic expectations for different ages. A toddler's emotional expression looks very different from a teenager's.
That's a perfect callback, Lisa. Our approach to emotional regulation must be age appropriate. For a young child, a tantrum is their way of expressing overwhelming emotions. For an adolescent, a powerful emotional response might still be challenging, but we can expect them to begin developing more sophisticated self-management techniques.
So, for a toddler, co-regulation is paramount. We are their external calm. For an older child, it starts to become more about guiding them to self-regulate.
Precisely. And when things go wrong, because they will, that's where the repair process becomes so vital. Even if we don't regulate perfectly, we can apologize, reconnect, and learn from the experience. This teaches children resilience.
It's a continuous cycle, isn't it? Self-awareness, recognizing triggers, managing emotions, and then repairing when we stumble. It really does connect everything we've learned.
It does. And remember when we discussed cultivating a harmonious family emotional culture? Emotional regulation is the bedrock of that. When everyone in the family has tools to manage their emotions, it creates a more peaceful, understanding, and connected environment.
And that's precisely what the Calm Parenting Blueprint aims to help us avoid. It's about creating a family environment where big feelings are acknowledged and navigated, not feared or suppressed.
Let's talk about a specific scenario. Imagine a child is really upset because they can't have a sugary treat before dinner. Their initial reaction might be tears or shouting. As a parent practicing emotional regulation, what might your internal process look like?
Okay, first, I notice my own rising frustration. My initial impulse might be to snap. But this is where the internal pause comes in. I take a deep breath. I'd remind myself, this isn't about me. This is about my child's unmet desire and their inability to manage that disappointment.
Excellent. You're self-aware and you're reframing the situation. What next?
Then I try to connect with my child. Instead of immediately saying no, again, I might get down to their level and say, I know you really want that cookie, and it's disappointing when I say no. It's hard to wait for special treats. I'm validating their wish and their feeling of disappointment.
And that validation can be incredibly disarming. It shows empathy and takes some of the heat out of the situation. Then what?
Then, once they've heard me, and perhaps their initial outburst has subsided, I can gently redirect. We need to eat our dinner first. After dinner, if there's still room for a treat, we can talk about it. But our bodies need healthy food right now. I'm being firm, but kind. And if they're still struggling, I might offer a distraction. How about we read this book while dinner is almost ready?
That's a fantastic example, Lisa. You've moved from a potentially explosive reaction to a calm, connected, and effective response. You've regulated yourself, soothed your child through co-regulation, and reinforced the family expectation around healthy eating. You essentially used your patience reservoir, your connected co-parenting skills, and your understanding of playful discipline, all powered by your own emotional regulation.
It really does tie everything together. It's not a separate skill, it's the glue that holds all the other parenting strategies in place. And what about when we, as parents, are the ones struggling to regulate, maybe due to stress, lack of sleep, or personal challenges? This is where self-care becomes so crucial, isn't it?
Absolutely. Our own emotional regulation is directly linked to our well-being. If our self-care blueprint is neglected, our ability to regulate under pressure plummets. We talked about realistic expectations, and managing our emotions is also about having realistic expectations of ourselves. We won't be perfectly regulated 100% of the time, and that's okay.
So, emotional regulation isn't about being a robot. It's about being human, but with tools to navigate those human experiences with grace and effectiveness. It's about responding with intention rather than reacting automatically.
Exactly. It's the foundation for a calm, connected, and resilient family culture. It empowers both parents and children to face life's challenges with greater confidence and a stronger sense of connection. We've explored many facets of this in our deep dives, and it's really the ongoing practice that makes the difference. It's a lifelong skill that benefits us and our children immeasurably.
It truly is. I feel like we've done a fantastic job connecting this episode's focus on emotional regulation to all those earlier concepts: patience, connection, discipline, self-care, and even sibling rivalry. It's all interconnected.
It is. And as we head towards our final episode, we'll be bringing all these pieces together to look at the long-term vision of the Calm Parenting Blueprint. We'll explore how this integrated approach creates lasting positive change for your family.
I'm really looking forward to that. So, for our listeners, the key takeaway from today's deep dive is that mastering emotional regulation for ourselves is the most powerful tool we have for guiding our children through their own emotional journeys, fostering a calm and connected family environment.
That's a perfect summary. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to our final Calm Parenting Blueprint episode. Today, we integrate all strategies for lasting change.
This is exciting, Alex. We've covered so much, from the prescription to patience and connection.
Absolutely. We'll show how these elements connect. Remember the core principle. Calm parenting is intentional and responsive, not reactive.
Right.
And building your patience reservoir gave us practical ways to replenish it.